To Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, here on Big 12 Radio, streaming on your screen on Big 12 Studios. We've got our producer, Taman Turner, over there. He's R.A. Timken. I'm James Westling. Super excited to have you with us on what is today? Thursday? Three Things Thursday. We've got more than three. We've got a loaded show. Injury reports, quarterback shakeups. The second biggest game of the Big 12 weekend is... We encourage you to jump into our YouTube chat at any point over the next 3 hours. Tell us who you think have been hit hardest by injuries this season. We'll be discussing that, or which of this weekend's matchups maybe is flying under the radar. We'll get to all of that. Plus, Chris Level's going to join us here in this first hour from Red Raider Sports. He is the sideline reporter for Texas Tech football, analyst for men's basketball on their radio network and Locked On Texas Tech. And then Baylor women's basketball head coach Nikki Collin will join us fresh off their huge top 10 win over Duke in women's basketball. It was the first season-opening top 10 win for a Big 12 team since 2009, so it had been a minute. And then John Beck is going to join us, the former BYU quarterback. He was the quarterback for the Cougars from 2003 to 2006. So 3 live guests today on the program as we are off and rolling. R.A. Timken, what's up?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if you're auditioning for a Gap ad or a Warby Parker ad this morning.
Yes.
You look like a failed Broadway actor who's looking to hit it big in a Gap commercial.
Revive his career.
Yeah, in a Gap commercial.
This was working for me this morning when I got dressed in the dark.
I can tell.
And I must say that you look... yesterday you were dressed like a box of crayons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of colors.
Lots of colors. So many colors. And it took 2 hours and 45 minutes into the program before I made a comment. Today you look like you're ready to talk NIL and maybe sell me on an extended warranty. I don't know. But much better.
You got to get those extended warranties. Really important.
Huge.
Just don't call and leave a message about it. That's so annoying when you get a spam call. We're calling about your car's extended warranty. Don't be that guy, Ari.
Yeah, that's producer Taman right there.
Taman, pretty sure you can block those now. You might need to be looking into an upgrade.
Yeah.
A little software update.
I haven't gotten a new phone in about 5 years. It's about that time.
I get way less spam calls.
All I get are spam calls.
Did I break news yesterday on the show when I told you that our flag football teams are playing Friday?
You did, yes.
Because apparently I went home and found out that not a lot of people were aware, like the YMCA
Yeah.
didn't do a really good job of making the teams known that there was a tournament this weekend. And so like 80% of our team had no clue.
Oh, so it's a forfeit.
No, we're going to be there.
Okay.
But our hope is that on Friday, because this is the first weekend I've had completely off. And I'm staying in town. My wife and I are trying to get out there and do something. I don't know what that'll mean. Maybe go to the botanical gardens. Who knows? A little bike ride around the lake. But she informed me last night that we've got potentially, because it's a tournament, we could potentially have 5 hours of flag football Friday.
You excited?
So excited.
Yeah, I mean, if you win, you keep playing. It is a classic football tournament.
We might throw the game Friday. I don't know if I could do 5 hours.
Well, if you lose, I hope you won't do the whole, well, we threw the game.
Like, kid that can't throw, let's put him in.
Yeah, we were better. We just weren't trying. Is that what you're gonna play that? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Kind of like Tommy Lloyd when he called me out yesterday when I told him Jaden Bradley was, Coach, I think he's one of the most underrated point guards in America. He said, yeah, it's easy to say that. He just had 27 the other night. You clown.
What were you saying that before?
I got super defensive. Really defensive. I was like, Coach, we'll roll some tape. We'll roll it.
You did. You did it well, actually, on Tommy Lloyd when he was just razzing you a little bit.
I went full defensive mode.
Yeah. Oh, no, I said it. I've been talking about Jaden Bradley nonstop. Yeah, Arizona's point guard, Jaden Bradley, absolutely. He's like basically the only guy I talk about.
I'll give you a deep dive scouting report on him right now. Don't question my knowledge, boy. Tommy's the best.
I could tell. I could tell you think so.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Super excited to talk with Nikki Collin today, too. Might write a little Baylor, France, Duke win rap.
Okay.
I want to know if she rapped in the locker room after the game. That was her hidden talent. Remember, she told us at Media Days.
Yep.
And I didn't know that you had such beatboxing skills.
Well, you never asked.
Hey, can you beatbox?
I mean, it's all those things
do a
are out
little
there.
Cash beatboxing?
What's your hidden talent?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to have to think on that. Hidden talent.
Producer Taman's hidden talent is that he does some pretty good impressions.
Yeah?
I do try to do that.
Yeah, you can do Stephen A. Smith. You selling solitaire ads?
Don't even get me started, brother. How many times I play solitaire?
You see that?
You guys trying to call me out in the NBA Finals trying to play solitaire. It's not my fault. Don't even, brother. I love you, brother.
It's pretty good. Player availability.
So you don't have a hidden talent, is that?
Yeah, I need to sit on it. All right, I'm a simple man. I'm sure I have many hidden talents.
All right,
okay?
what's yours?
I'm really good at
Beatboxing.
It's beatboxing.
Beatboxing.
Yeah, just give me a minute. Like, you're throwing me off a little bit. I'll find one. Obviously, my sense of style, but that's not really hidden.
What about like talent? Do you have any talent? Whether it's hidden or otherwise.
I need some aloe vera for that burn. Yeah, I could find something. My dad texted me last night right before bed. I mean, my head is on the pillow.
9:30?
Maybe earlier.
9?
I was a tired puppy last night.
Yeah.
So he texts me out of the blue asking for my social security number.
Oh.
So it was either my dad or a Nigerian prince. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Did you just not even think about it? Just,
Oh,
of course,
fired it
yeah.
right off. High five.
Here's my social security number. Here's my credit cards.
Screenshot you some credit cards too. Turns out he was putting together. I think he was putting together a will or something about beneficiaries down the road. So that wasn't alarming. Just a warm family moment right before bed.
So
is everything okay?
Did you get specific on it?
No.
So how much am I getting then?
No,
How
I didn't
much,
try.
What kind of percentages are we talking here?
I just want to be in there. Like I'll take whatever.
Just get me a seat at the table.
I didn't want to pry. He claims that, I don't know.
Is there anything specific you've got your eye on?
Yeah, he's got a pretty sick Mustang. He's got a Mustang Bullet. Yeah, it's a nice car.
What year is it?
It's a stick. It was like early 2000s.
Okay.
It's not, one of the original throwbacks, but
right.
they brought it back in, I think, like 2007 or something. But, it's a beast. Yeah, and it's like his prized possession. I mean, he loves that thing.
So can you drive stick?
Oh, yeah.
That's a hidden
Is
talent.
that a hidden talent?
I mean,
Can people not do that anymore?
in 2025,
Oh, come on now.
I never learned.
I can't even imagine most people.
Heyman, you can't drive a stick?
Never learned.
Oh, who?
What?
No one
Yeah,
taught me.
Can you?
No. I mean, I think I could throw me in a new manual car, and I could probably do it.
Okay.
I could
This would be
probably
good.
do it too, but I am the type of person. I'm very simple. I don't need to do too much. Just let me put the car in drive, and I'm good to go.
Hopefully not sooner rather than later, but I'll get that Mustang Bullet up here. We'll take it for a spin.
You didn't even. Hey, so Dad, now that we're on the topic of your will, the bullet, who's it for?
The Bullet. Where's it going?
Is it going to me or?
Totally me.
Yeah.
Totally me.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Oh yeah. I got an army of children, 4 boys between our blended family. The Bullet's coming. It's coming. Yeah, like my first 4 cars were a stick.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
I mean, I drove stick until they don't even make them anymore.
Didn't even take us 5 minutes to get your hidden
They don't
talent.
even make them anymore.
No, of course not.
You can't
Why would
buy a
they?
stick if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Player availability reporting. The big one is Texas Tech and BYU.
So Wednesday night, all Big 12 teams are required to submit an availability report prior to their Saturday games. UCF and Houston had to do it on Tuesday night because they play Friday night, so it was a day earlier.
Yeah,
But most other teams have to do it on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m.
9 o'clock p.m. Yesterday I learned it's not 9 o'clock a.m. I mean, I have been hitting a hard tease.
Yes.
Multiple weeks. That,
Yes.
hey, coming up here in about 20 minutes, the player availability reports will be released.
I figured at some point that would correct itself, but
No. Oh, no.
I had to.
No. Then we'd get to the end of the show, and I'd quietly be over here like, when are we going to talk about
get it?
When are we going to talk about these reports?
They said 9 a.m.
Everybody's lagging. It's 9 p.m.
Yeah.
The big one is BYU and Texas Tech, man. That's the game of the week, ESPN Game Day. Taman, let's hit BYU offensive coordinator, Aaron Roderick. He gives an update on running back L.J. Martin.
I'm not allowed to talk about his personal, like his the details of it, but I think he's going to have a chance to play. Just how much we're still working through that in practice, seeing how he feels day to day. We'll find out Saturday, right? I mean, that's what I can't answer yet. He's practiced a lot, really. I mean, he's just got a little banged up, and he's practicing, and we'll find out what he can do Saturday. And still got a couple more days of practice to see how he feels each day too.
It really sounds like Aaron Roderick's trying not to give much information whatsoever while giving information.
Exactly. Like, he's playing. He is playing in this game on Saturday. There is no question about it.
Well, he's probable. Which, if I understand words correctly, means he's probably going to play.
Right.
Also showing up on this probable list is Raider Demooney, who started the year as strong safety, but has been supplanted by a guy who's become maybe the most important piece on the defense for BYU. But we'll see if Demooney gets a chance to play again. But yeah, L.J. Martin, I mean, the ability for BYU to upset Texas Tech at Lubbock on Saturday morning starts with L.J. Martin being fully healthy. And I say fully healthy. Nobody's fully healthy at this part of the year, but it's healthy enough to have your full complement of carries.
How many carries do you think, like, ideally, I'm sure you want to give him the rock 20, 25 times. He's carried the ball 132 times in 8 games. He has almost 800 yards already, 5 touchdowns. So remember, their backup running back, or the guy that was supposed to be the backup this year, Sione Moa, he's out. He's been out for a couple of weeks. He's out in this game. Maybe he's done for the year. I'm not sure. L.J. Martin is probable. On the other side for Texas Tech, quarterback Baron Morton is probable. I mean, those are the two probably most impactful offensive guys, not just on the player availability report, but in the game for their respective teams. Because BYU doesn't have another guy that gets a lot of carries that isn't like a receiver or a tight end or an H-back or Bear Bachmeier, their quarterback. L.J. Martin is RB1, workhorse, bell cow. He's it. For Texas Tech, Baron Morton, if he gets knocked out of this game, like you're down to Mitch Griffiths, you've got your third-string quarterback out there. Like, those are the two guys that I look at that neither side can afford to lose.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the quarterback position is a given. I think the style for which BYU plays makes L.J. Martin irreplaceable. And, yeah, you mentioned, I mean, Moa, I'm not sure he's played this year much, if at all. Mm-mm. So, and it's a similar situation to, as you just mentioned, with Baron Morton. You know, Will Hammond, their backup quarterback, who has played well at times, he's out for the year with the torn ACL. And so, yeah, it's on Baron Morton now because Mitch Griffiths is probably more of a placeholder than anything else. And this should be part of Jay Hill's defensive attack. I mean, obviously always it is to get after the quarterback, but even more so when a guy's hurt or, you know, has been consistently hurt. I mean, you're going to bring extra pressure, you're going to simulate pressure, like you're going to do a lot of things to try to bring the house in order to get after a guy that's had some injury issues.
Let's say hypothetically, Baron Morton and L.J. Martin, I know they're probable, but let's say, you know, one of those guys gets hurt in this game or doesn't play all 4 quarters. Which team is in a better position to survive in this game losing one of those two dudes?
I mean, I would say L.J. Martin, but I'm not sure because you're making me choose an answer.
So you think BYU is more likely to win this game if L.J. Martin doesn't play versus Texas Tech winning if Baron Morton couldn't play,
Correct.
Hypothetically?
Yeah, the quarterback's the most important position on the field. So unquestionably. Now, again, in the context of what BYU wants to do, L.J. Martin is hugely important. But there's no replacing the quarterback, and especially given the situation with Texas Tech. If Will Hammond didn't tear his ACL, then maybe my answer would be different here. But yeah, it's Baron Morton.
Hard to disagree. Some of the other games, West Virginia and Colorado. West Virginia doesn't have any new injuries that we really haven't highlighted. They've got a ton of guys out for the year. Same thing for Colorado. DJ McKinney, their best cornerback, is questionable in this game against West Virginia. Iowa State and TCU. Will McLaughlin is out for Iowa State, the linebacker. Abu Sama, the running back, is probable. And then questionable is Big Dom Orange, their defensive tackle. Ben Bramer, their tight end, is questionable in this game. So Iowa State already down two elite members of their secondary, which I think has been the story of their season for the Cyclones. And then Ed Small is out for TCU, their slot receiver. They've got an offensive lineman that's questionable, but Iowa State's injury list is long.
Yeah, and especially at corner. I mean, you mentioned the two guys they lost that are, all Big 12 type corners that have really derailed their season. And we'll get into that further in terms of how much of an impact it's had on Rocco Becht overall. But even, Ben Ngoyi is questionable. He's a defensive back that was, a huge part of the replacement for those guys. So Iowa State just continues to get more unhealthy week by week. They started off 5-0, looked like a major potential Big 12 champion and playoff team, and now they're 5-4.
Could you make a case that Iowa State has been the Big 12 team that's been impacted most by injuries this season?
Yeah. Just trying to think through.
Obviously, you like Arizona State not having Sam Levitt.
There you go. Arizona State and Iowa
one
State
stands out.
Are the two. Now, both teams played for the Big 12 championship last year, as luck would have it, and they're the two teams probably most impacted by injury. I think Arizona State stands out because it's Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, but they still won games. Mm-hmm. I mean, basically, Iowa State hasn't won since they lost their two starting corners. So Iowa State has had the greater impact simply because of the output of the team. Like Arizona State still won last week. They're still competing for a Big 12 championship. I mean, they only have 2 losses. Any teams that right now are standing at 2 losses are in the conversation. Mm-hmm. So Iowa State's not there. They were 5-0, now they're 5-4. Their season's been completely derailed by injury. And it has impacted every other part of the football team.
The other team, I think Kansas State would enter the chat without Dylan Edwards and George Fitzpatrick and some of their defensive guys that missed time, Colby McAllister, the safety, and then West Virginia. I think Rich Rod would probably say, hey, we've had more injuries than anybody. Now,
yeah, they've had to play 5 different quarterbacks, start 4 different ones, I think he said. Yeah.
4 different quarterbacks have started a game this year for West Virginia.
That's 5 have played. And they played 4 in one game.
Yes. Remember they had 5 quarterbacks on their initial depth chart? Like, why would you list 5 quarterbacks?
As it turns out, maybe Rich Rod will only want to list 2 next year.
Exactly. 1,000%. All right, coming up next, what is the Big 12's second biggest game this weekend? There's only 5. A lot of teams are on bye. Game day number 2. We know where game day number 1 is with BYU and Texas Tech, but what's number 2? He's Ari, I'm James. Taman on the controls. This is Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios, powered by Modelo. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. You can catch all of our guest interviews wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, right here, TuneIn, on demand. You're watching us on the Big 12 Fast channel, Big12Studios.com, via your Roku device, Amazon Prime, DirecTV. Most people watch us on YouTube. We are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo. So the biggest game this weekend, Ari, is clearly BYU Texas Tech. First Big 12 top 10 matchup since 2021, when the Big 12 championship game was Oklahoma State and Baylor. Didn't realize both those teams were actually in the top 10 that year. Thought maybe it was even further back than that. But we've got a regular season top 10 banger. But not to be overlooked, game day number 2. What is the second biggest game this weekend? Is it TCU Iowa State? Houston UCF is a 1.5-point line. Is it the bowl eligibility bowl with KU and Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to think about this or look at it, right? I mean, there's what's the biggest game and why is it the biggest game? Well, BYU Texas Tech's the biggest game because it's two teams at the top of the conference fighting for conference supremacy, but also for a leg up in the race and hoping to keep pace in the college football playoff. So, the implications are so obviously there. So when you look at the rest of them, for me, it's Iowa State and TCU, a game that can be seen at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern on Fox. And that's because Iowa State's out of it. They've lost 4 straight. They're looking to bounce back and at least get one more win to get bowl eligibility and kind of somewhat save a lost season. But TCU is very quietly 6-2.
Yep. And
3-2 in the Big 12. And at this point in time, if you are only with 2 losses in conference play, you are still in it. I mean, we'll see what happens in the ensuing weeks, but if TCU gets this win and gets to 4-2, they're very much in the thick of the Big 12 title race. So when I think about you mentioned UCF Houston, and that's a 1.5-point line, and that's a close game. I think the Arizona-Kansas game will be good. Arizona's a favorite by 5.5. I just think from an implication standpoint, TCU is very quietly in the picture here without much fanfare, without much talk or discussion in terms of their overall. So that, to me, is the second biggest game of the weekend.
Josh Hoover, the TCU quarterback, has to be foaming at the mouth with how beat up that Iowa State secondary is.
Yeah.
And for Iowa State, what's their goal at 5-4? Is it to make a bowl? They wrap up at Oklahoma State. That should be their 6th win, you would think. They play KU at home next weekend. That's kind of a low-key rivalry game. But, I chalk their season up to injuries this year. They started 5-0. They've lost 4 in a row. 5-0, and they've lost 4 in a row. But for whatever reason, one thing about Matt Campbell's tenure, he's a phenomenal football coach. Iowa State just seems to always have some bad luck after a really good year. They're kind of like what Oklahoma State used to be, where if they're preseason expected to be in the top 5 or top 4 of the Big 12, count them out. If they're middle of the pack or lower tier, they're going to have a big year. After Brock Purdy went 9-3 and won the Fiesta Bowl, they were preseason a top 10 team going into the next year, and they went 7-6. This season kind of reminds me of that. They go 11-3 last year, and they've kind of come back down to earth, and a lot of it, I think, is out of their control. It's just bad luck. This is why we can't have nice things in Ames.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. And then the other side, this was thought to be a pretty big year for TCU. We thought from a preseason standpoint that TCU would be competing for a Big 12 championship. We looked at their schedule and thought it's a really tough schedule, and you just never know how things are going to shake out. And I think ultimately it's been tough, but maybe not as tough as we expected it to be. And, this game, what's really interesting about TCU is their home road splits with ball security is stunning.
Yeah.
TCU at home is +7 in the giveaway takeaway. On the road, though, they've bled turnovers. So this game heavily favors TCU from the turnover standpoint. For some reason, think about the K-State game. Without turnovers, that absolutely killed them in that game. So +7 at home. They've been really good for some reason in Fort Worth at taking the football away and not turning it over themselves, whereas on the road, for some reason, they've been awful at it. And that, that's one area where you're thinking maybe Iowa State has a shot in that capacity. But I think to your point, TCU's offense, and more specifically their passing offense, is by far the best group in this game, and just hard to think that Iowa State can put it together defensively since they just have not been able to do that.
I think TCU's favored by about a touchdown. They have a really interesting final stretch. Iowa State this weekend, and then at BYU is a game where, like, you look at a team that can go on the road and maybe hit you with some explosives and pull off an upset, kind of like KU did at BYU last year. That's a big game. Then they're at Houston, and then they play at home against Cincinnati. They kind of control their own destiny in a lot of ways in terms of the rest of the season for them.
Yeah, the other game that I think might be in this conversation is the Bowl Eligibility Bowl.
And that's my pick, is KU Arizona. I think that's a massive game that's very much being overlooked. And probably two of the better quarterbacks that haven't gotten the love this season that they deserve when you look at Jalen Daniels at KU and Noah Fafita at Arizona. They're both in the top 4. They're 2 of the top 4 in the Big 12 in passing efficiency. Like, who has the better quarterback?
Yeah. Well, and for Kansas, look at the rest of their schedule with Iowa State next week and then Utah to finish the season. This feels like their best chance to get that 6th win. Now, again, the way Iowa State's playing, maybe that game's not as tough as it appeared to be a couple of weeks ago. But if I'm Kansas, I'm zeroing in on this one to get to bowl eligible, because if they got to 5 wins this past week against Oklahoma State. It would be a huge disappointment for this team who last year had to fight and win all their games at the end to try to get to bowl eligibility, but didn't, and lost to Baylor on the last day of the regular season to fall to 5-7. This year, you're there with 3 games clear just to win 1. It'd be a huge disappointment for Kansas. I don't think Lance Leipold's on the hot seat, but back-to-back 5-7 seasons would not sit well.
Agreed. And for me, it's whoever loses this game is going to be feeling really bad come Monday. The winner, I think the expectations coming into the season were a little bit higher for Kansas than they were for Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, Kansas took down 3 top 25 teams consecutively last season. There was a lot of momentum going into this year with Jalen Daniels back at quarterback. So not making a bowl would be a huge disappointment. Now, I think they'll get there, but 6-4 is a lot different than a 5-5 record in my eyes, and they're 5-4 right now. Meanwhile, for Arizona, if you win this game, all of a sudden you're back to 500 in Big 12 play. You're 6-3. I think regardless of what happens the rest of the way, that's a huge benchmark to hit in year 2 of the Brent Brennan era, which has been just a wild tenure because he got hired so late and everybody expected him to come in with an NFL wide receiver and Fafia at quarterback, and despite all the transfers that nobody was paying any attention to, thought they'd win 7 or 8 games their first year in the Big 12, and it didn't happen. But there's been major growth in year 2, and I think to quiet some of the fans, getting to 6-3 would be big for him and his staff. And Noah Fafita still has a year left of eligibility. He's had a tremendous season. 21 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. What was his Achilles heel last year? He was throwing the ball away a lot. He's been so much better in this offense. Ishmael Mahdi's got over 500 yards rushing. Their passing defense is 3rd in the country. So there's a lot to like about Arizona that I think has been kind of flying under the radar.
The other one is the game on Friday night, which is the space game. UCF Houston. Houston coming off their very disappointing loss to West Virginia, who, before losing to West Virginia, when you looked at the rest of Houston's schedule, thought, man, they're going to go to the Big 12 championship game. And it's a great example, by the way, of how we always play this same game this time of year, with projecting out the rest of the games based on how 2 teams are playing without recognizing that, like, crazy things always happen at the end of the year that dictate these college football playoff races. Like, the pressure ramps up. We're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. In some cases where, like, pressure can get to them in that way. And especially, like, early in the season, it's easier to play. There's, you're able to keep it 1 game at a time. And I know coaches always try to do that, but it's hard to. So, like, crazy things happen. And that, I thought Houston's loss to West Virginia is a good example of how that happens every year at the end of the season. UCF is 8-0 in the space game against Houston. Houston has not won in this series as they've been playing it annually for the last 8 seasons. So I'm looking for a bounce back from Houston after a very disappointing loss to West Virginia. Both teams are coming off hugely disappointing losses, James. I mean, UCF Scored 3 points against a defense that had been hemorrhaging points. Could not run the football with a quarterback that we've seen in Taven Jackson run all over teams this season. So both teams coming off hugely disappointing games and losses, and UCF trying to hold serve in a series that they've dominated.
I love the space game. I'm here for the space game. They've never lost to anybody in space games. Space games are undefeated. UCF is 8-0 all-time against anybody in space games. And to your point, they've kind of owned Houston as of late.
It's not always Houston. It makes sense because Houston's got a NASA facility, so does Orlando and Cape Canaveral. So
Insert Houston, we have a problem.
thank you. Yeah,
Pun.
you got it.
So, do you know the history of the space game? Like why they play the space game at Space U, UCF?
Because both are known for space, Houston and Orlando.
So, UCF, yes, that's true, and no. UCF just schedules a game in November against somebody that's their space game. And they've got new uniforms. They roll out these space uniforms every year. It's different every year. But the Space U game centers around UCF being the number one provider of aerospace and defense talent in the nation.
Oh, nice.
There are 65 UCF students who are working on a research team at the Center of Excellence in Hypersonics and Space Population.
I don't know what you just said.
There's a lot of students researching space.
Got it.
Okay? 35 plus.
Can you dumb it down a little bit more?
Yeah, I will. 35 plus space-related degrees at UCF. Today I learned UCF has 35 plus space-related degrees. That's a lot. 700 plus NASA projects that UCF faculty and students have been working on, teaming up with NASA since 1963. And then this is my favorite. This is my favorite one. The bounce house. The 50-yard line at the bounce house lines up on the exact latitude as Launch Complex 39A, which is NASA's most historic launch pad, 31 miles due east of the stadium.
What'd you just say?
The 50-yard line of the bounce house
Yes, got that.
lines up at the exact latitude as Launch Complex 39A, which
Okay.
is NASA's most historic launch pad, which is exactly 39 miles straight on that line of latitude from the stadium.
Longitude, latitude, I must have missed that day at school.
30% of the Kennedy Space Center employees are UCF alumni.
That's pretty cool. And thanks for the correction there. I figured they played Houston every year, and I feel like in years past, even in the Big 12, the last couple of years they played. But no, they've only played Houston once in this space game in 2019, which makes zero sense to me. They're two space cities.
Yeah.
They should play every year in the space game.
Yeah, that's a spacey miss.
That's a spacey miss. Longitude, latitude, that.
It's pretty cool, though, all the space stuff. I used to think, they just won a game to wear these uniforms, right? Now, there's a lot of space stuff. Very into space.
Very spacey, that UCF program.
You know who's not spacey? Chris Level. He's going to join us next from Red Raider Sports and Locked On Texas Tech. He will be live on the program to break down the Texas Tech BYU game. We'll chat with Chris after this timeout. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio. Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios. Brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo. Getting set for BYU and Texas Tech. College Game Day will be there this weekend. We are now joined by our good buddy Chris Level from Red Raider Sports and Locked On Texas Tech. He'll be on the sidelines. He'll be on the basketball call for Texas Tech on Friday. What's up, Chris?
Nothing. Just another normal week in the 806. No, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a lot of fun. This is what we kind of live for, right? This time of year, meaningful sports, and here we go.
So today's Thursday. The game's Saturday. When does it start to feel like game day? Like, when does it start to feel in Lubbock like, okay, something big is happening this weekend?
Well, I went over to Joey's press conference on Monday and passed about 500 kids in tents, and they're throwing the football, they're playing frisbee, they're playing video games with their TVs plugged into the side of the Womble facility. And so I guess I felt it then, which been a minute since then. It's been like this. Now there's nearly, I don't know, just under 2,000 kids out there camping out at 3 different locations, and the game day set is being built nearby. I keep getting text messages, hey, I just saw the college game day bus riding down. I'm like, yeah, cool, man. I don't know what it's a bus with a logo on it. But there's I love that people are so juiced, and if you really want to know how big a game this is, go check the ticket prices on the secondary market for this thing. It is insane. You're talking $400 to $500 as the cheapest ticket.
Yeah.
Which is just, and this is a stadium that's going to hold over 60,000 people, but it's been, and this is great for Brett Yormark and this league. This is what we all wanted, and this is what you wondered if you could ever achieve. And here it is, sitting right here in your lap, and you got 2 programs that are in the top 10, and I'm here for it, man. It should be a lot of fun, but there will be 5 rings to this circus this weekend. There's a lot going on. Makes my head want to explode, but we're going to try to stay in the moment.
Yeah, it's a great point, especially about Brett Yormark and the Big 12. And the last time 2 top 10 teams met in the Big 12, it was 2021 in the Big 12 championship game. So to have 2 top 10 teams meeting here, before the Big 12 championship game speaks to the strength of the conference right now, which we weren't sure would be attainable 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Chris, I think we've spent so much time talking about this defense, but specifically in the players on the defense. Jacob Rodriguez is incredible, and he's the defensive player of the year in college football and in the Big 12. There's no doubt about that. And, David Bailey and Romello Height. I haven't specifically talked a ton about Sheil Wood and how big of an addition he's been. Can you just speak to their new DC and how much of a difference he's made on this roster and on this defense?
He said something on Monday that it was very simple and yet very meaningful, and I think he was trying to, because what has been great about Sheil is he's giving every bit of the credit to the players. You talk to the players, they give every bit of the credit to their coach. But he said, I had a mentor tell me one time, you teach kids how to study film, you teach them the angles of the game. And when they can do that and they're really into it, then it all works, because this is an old team that is mature, and you talk to the older players and they're saying, hey, what's fun for us as older players is I'm seeing some of the true freshmen, the redshirt freshmen. We're coming into the film room and they're already in there looking at stuff. But Sheil's just done a great job. And he does have really good players. He will be the first to tell you that. But he has an ability to adjust. If you go look at like what you've been able to do in the second half to teams, it's pretty impressive. And again, he's got playmakers at all 3 levels. I think some of the Jacob Rodriguez and the David Bailey's, Romello Heights, they get a lot of attention. The Lee Hunters in the middle, Bryce Pollock at corner, Cole Wisniewski at safety. There's just playmakers at all 3 levels here, and that's what's fascinating. But like Cole Wisniewski forces a fumble against Kansas State last weekend, or actually recovered it, and then he sprinted over to go hand it to Jacob Rodriguez. And like, hey man, you lost something. Here you go. I mean, and like it's working well together. But yeah, Shields done a great job.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, there's no doubt.
show me a great coach with bad players, and I'll show you a bad team. Like Greg Popovich may be the best coach of all time, and like without Kawhi Leonard and Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili, he wasn't so good. Like that's kind of how it works.
But he doesn't. He's not. And I learned this back in say maybe May or June. He wasn't going to come in here when he realized what he had. Sometimes coach's ability to not overcoach or overthink it is their best ability.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, I don't have to come in here and reinvent the wheel. We don't have to throw a ton of scheme and have the playbook be, no.
Right.
I mean, let's keep it fair. I think I talked about that with you guys some in the summer, like keeping it fairly simple. They do adjust. Here's some of the fun bells and whistles that we have seen, though, that they have unveiled as they've gone along. I mean, he has put Romello Height and David Bailey at different times standing up as almost like a middle linebacker spy, and that has got to be a frightening sight to the opposing quarterback. And they've just done some different – he's just got a lot of fun chess pieces to play with here, and he's certainly utilizing them.
We're talking with Chris Level. He'll be on the sidelines for the BYU Texas Tech game this Saturday. College Game Day will be there in Lubbock, Texas. The first top 10 Big 12 matchup since 2021. Chris, I was super impressed by Texas Tech against K-State. Like, not a lot of teams go into Manhattan and win by 3+ touchdowns in K-State's backyard. What stood out to you, and where does Texas Tech maybe have to be even a little bit better against BYU in some areas?
Yeah, well, that's been a house of horrors for Texas Tech. That Bill Snyder Family Stadium, just haven't had a lot of success there, and so that was it probably wasn't as big nationally, but inside the Texas Tech program, that was a big deal to go in there and win, and then doing it the way you did it. I thought at the beginning of that game, you could tell there was some misdirection. It was a lot of QB run with Avery Johnson, and then once Matt Wells kind of had shown you what they didn't really have anything to lean on, because once Texas Tech adjusted to some of those unbalanced formations, I just thought that Avery Johnson just didn't have enough help around him, and that's what Texas Tech can do to you. They just, Jace Brown got loose one time, but they kind of said the QB and the receiver, nothing else, and there was just not anybody else that you felt like could hurt you. I thought Barron played a good game, but it was their ability to run the ball. That's really been the thing about Texas Tech this year, is in their best games, they've been able to run it when they want to and when the opposition knows it's coming. And they were really able to establish that, I think in Manhattan. They did so against Kansas in Lubbock. They did so against Utah and Salt Lake City. And those were some of their best games when they were just really, able to run the ball when they wanted to. But like two of my favorite players on this team, just because they're so versatile and they do a variety of different things. And anytime you've played really well, they've both played well, and that's Jacoby Williams and Terrence Carter. You'd missed Terrence Carter a week before, and so you're trying to heal him up, and he's just such a mismatch. It's a 6'2", 250-pound tight end that you line up all over the place. Backfield, slot, hand in the ground, outside. And he gets in the open field, and he just starts Earl Campbelling people. I mean, he just is, like running over him, but he's so fast. And it's a fascinating matchup because he can do so much. And then Jacoby Williams as a returner, and then he busted off the long run the other day. So I think the ability to run the ball, sorry for the long answer.
Yeah, no, Carter is an NFL player. I mean, he is impressive. He's a freight train when he gets downhill. Baron Morton, Chris, what's your kind of total assessment of him? Obviously, the health is a part of this, but just give us your sense of how Barrett, from your vantage point, how Barron's played this year, and like, do you think at this point, like, he's playing well enough to win playoff games?
Yeah, this whole thing to this point has largely sucked for him, just because he got smoked on a blitz the first game of the year, and this is really the same issue he's dealing with, and I just hate it because it's like, man, you sit around all summer and you're coming back from a shoulder surgery and you've got these visions of, man, I just want to have the right kind of senior season and just go out the right way and feel good and all that. And he just really hasn't had any kind of continuity. I thought it is worth noting the committee really, I guess, didn't ding you as much for that Arizona State loss because Barron was out. I did hear that we mentioned this on our broadcast last week, but we were talking to Mac Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, and he said like they talked to the Arizona State staff, and he said we feared Barron Morton much more than we did Will Hammond. It's not a shot at Will Hammond. It's just Barron does some different things with his arm and all that stuff. Well, they got Will Hammond and they beat him, but he's been good. I think that considering the injury that he's kind of been having to deal with and the time that he's missed. I know he's been frustrated, but here's what he brings that Will Hammond or nobody else really could on the team. There's just a presence about him. There's some leadership. I think him being around, him being out there, and he does have big-time arm talent. He's got a lot of experience, and the thing, it's not lost on me too that you've run the ball really well in some of the games that Barron has played the majority of because he checks to the right play, checks out of a bad one. On the RPO stuff, he knows when to hand it or when to throw it. I mean, there's some I think things there that are helping the run game out when he's in there. And it's crazy I'm saying that because Will Hammond is so good at running the ball himself. But I think there's just some things that Barron brings to the table that just because of his experience. And yeah, I do. I don't think he's played his best yet. I think that he will. This is like I don't want to make too much of it, but it's really. I mean, all roads lead to this. This is kind of a legacy type game for this program, for this head coach, and really this quarterback on Saturday. It just is. If you play really well, people will remember it forever. If you don't. Same, that's just right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just kind of where this is at, and I expect him to at least play well. But if he plays great, I mean, again, it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, that's a really good point because for whatever reason, like Barron's not in the same conversation as other Texas Tech quarterbacks of the past. And I remember Zach Kitley, last year's offensive coordinator, who's coached Mahomes and Bailey Zappi and a ton of guys that have been in the NFL, and he said Barron Morton has the second most live arm, like the second strongest arm next to Mahomes that I've ever been around. But people don't think of Barron Morton in that same light. So if he goes out and he balls out, will people start to think of him differently, to your point?
Well, and then again, his story's still being written, and it obviously, if Saturday needs to be a part of that, but there could be more layers here. Like Barron could have a hell of an ending to his career here, depending on where it goes. And he's just this is a kid that, and you guys know this, but he invested into himself with like buying land with his, he's not driving some fancy truck or this or that, and he's already like a business guy. He's just a good West Texas kid. His dad is a football coach, and so he's an easy kid to root for sure. And I just hate it that he hasn't had the kind of. But again, as we know, nobody's owed anything in this stuff, and it's a very physical sport, and you gotta. That's why some of these guys are well paid, and deservedly so. And you just got to deal with it as it comes. But yeah, his story's still being written, so I guess we'll see how the book finishes.
Yeah, there's still several more chapters for sure. Real quick, Chris, how many Texas Tech basketball players missed their opener? I know they've got a game Friday against Sam Houston.
Yeah, against the Bearcats with a K, and so I've never understood that one. So yeah, they were missing 6'6", 6'9", 6'9", 7 foot on the bench the other day. So you have a 6'5" freshman guard that rolls in from Minnesota in his first game and pulls down 16 boards. But most notably, when I show up, I was doing TV for this game, and you plan, this James, you plan on the graphics for like what you're going to show in the open and during the game. Well, who do you think my key player to watch in the game was going to be? Well, JT Toppin. And so you show up to the arena like at shoot around, and it's like, yeah, I don't know if JT's going to play tonight. I'm like, well, okay, scrap that. But I believe he will debut his season Friday night. I think that's the plan. So we'll see if that. But Lawan Watts didn't play. Luke Bomboye, who's arguably your starting center, didn't play. So, yeah, man, you were a bit undersized even against old Lindenwood, if you can believe that.
Man, can't wait for that game on Friday. Can't wait to see Toppin. And then it all leads to Saturday at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, College Game Day on ABC. Chris, thank you so much for your time. We are so excited for what's going to take place in Lubbock on Saturday.
Yeah, keep hope alive, boys. It's a good time to be a Red Raider. It's a good time to be a Big 12 fan too. So we'll talk to you next time.
All right, man. Thanks, Chris. We'll see you. Chris
Got it.
Level on the sidelines for Texas Tech and BYU. He will be the analyst for Texas Tech men's basketball, their game against Sam Houston on Friday. Also host of Red Raider Sports and Locked on Texas Tech podcast. Always great to catch up with our good buddy Chris Level. Man, they were missing some dudes in that basketball opener. And then Baron Morton, all the stuff about his legacy, like that conversation just kind of magnified how important this game is for him specifically. And we'll talk more about Big 12 quarterbacks and their legacy. What's up with Rocco? A look at all Big 12 quarterbacks coming up next. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Taman, our producer, on the controls. This is Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Studios. You can catch our Big 12 Game of the Week this Saturday with BYU and Texas Tech right here on Big 12 Radio, followed by KU in Arizona. We are brought to you by our friends at Modelo. Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. Taman, our producer over there, he's Ari Timken on social at Ari Sports, ARI Sports. I'm James Westling on social at James Westling. So, Ari, you know, every week we make our picks, right, on this show. We didn't have a great week last week.
No. It feels like you and I both either have great weeks or bad weeks.
Yeah.
We've had more great than bad, but yeah, no, not we. I think we both went 1-4.
But I still think we're hitting at roughly 60% for the year, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good, I'd say. But when we were trying to figure out which games we were going to look at from the Big 12 this weekend, we'll be making our picks on tomorrow's show. So I always go to ESPN.com and I look at the matchups, and usually there's a line for the line from ESPN Bet. It wasn't there this week. And I thought, well, that's just kind of weird. So went to a couple of different sites and got the lines and got them to Joe, and we'll be picking those games tomorrow. Well, it turns out that this is breaking news that ESPN and Penn Entertainment are ending their sports betting partnership. It was a 10-year, $2 billion deal that they signed in 2023. What this means is ESPN Bet is officially shutting down. It's going away.
So how long did it last? So
it only lasted
did not
2
last
years.
10 years, right?
No, 8 years left on the initial agreement.
It's honestly, if you would have told me it's been less than a year, I would have believed you. Like, it feels like it hasn't been that long. It is. It always felt like an odd partnership from the standpoint of, you know, the sports book is the same group that's now reporting on the teams, you know, and that's always hairy when it comes to, they've got many of the newsbreakers working for their company, and, you know, could certain news break that dictates lines or dictates the way games go. So, you know, you can kind of tell it was never picking up the same steam like a DraftKings or some of these other sports books have. And I'm sure there's a ton of reasons for it, but I guess what's interesting is why it didn't get more time. Why now?
Well, I know that, you know, there was a lot of backlash after the Chauncey Billups story that broke a couple of weeks ago, because ESPN's reporting on that and they're talking about everything that's going on in the NBA. And then down on their ticker, they've got this giant ESPN Bet logo. I think they even had like an ESPN Bet little side graphic promo that popped up as they're talking about how disgusting this is for the NBA. Like, both things can't be true. So, yeah, I place all my bets on ESPN Bet, said nobody,
right.
Ever.
And maybe that's why. Maybe just people could not get over the fact that it's like, well, ESPN's where you watch and pay attention to sports as opposed to a place where you place wagers. I don't know. But it feels like ESPN's running in a million different directions right now and try to figure out what sticks. And, you know, we'll see if it's the right business model. I mean, recently they moved towards, you know, differentiating the properties, right? Like at first, Disney put all these groups together, and now they're sort of their own entities, each area of Disney, to try to see where the leakage is coming from. And, you know, I always figured with ESPN, it was more of like sports was more of like a loss leader for them. And, you know, it's always felt like it's a huge marketing engine. Sports is for Disney movies and shows and products. So, I mean, it's one, you know, so you wonder how much that continues, is because, I mean, the NFL deal that they have is far more money than they could ever make back. And, you know, college football is huge for them, and it's a big reason why I think they're trying to get YouTube TV to pay as much money. So, you know, I don't know how into the minutia and the weeds we want to get in terms of like the business strategy of ESPN or Disney, but it's just interesting to look at. And I mean, they should still have lines up there, even if they're not the ones that are procuring the lines.
Kind of thought the same thing.
Yeah.
It's weird to just not see them anywhere. And so I leave ESPN.com to go find them, and then maybe don't go back. But college football viewership for ESPN is way up this year. Like the Big 12 alone's up 11%, so that's a good thing for the conference and for ESPN. Talking Big 12 quarterbacks, so before the season, you know, we knew this was going to be a strong year for Big 12 quarterbacks. I would say it's lived up to the hype.
Okay, so do you think it's lived up to the hype?
Well, in terms of where I would position them, maybe not. But you look at all the numbers and you look at, I guess the one thing would be the Big 12 really doesn't have a Heisman contender, which if it's the year of the quarterback, you would think there would be a guy that would be in the conversation for the Heisman. So maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a huge disappointment as the year of the quarterback. I mean, who's the best quarterback in the Big 12 this year?
Probably Sawyer Robertson, and he plays for a 5-4 team.
Yeah. I mean, is it Brendan Sorsby? Is it Sawyer Robertson? Is it Josh Hoover? I mean, is it Devin Dampier? Is it Bear Bachmeier? I mean, when the season started, Rocco Becht and Sam Levitt and there was a list of guys that especially like
Avery Johnson.
Avery Johnson. Sam Levitt was a guy that I think many thought, myself included, could turn this year into being a first round pick in next year's draft. Rocco Becht had the possibility to do that. I thought those two guys were legitimate NFL quarterbacks. And then you could make the case for Hoover's got a big time arm and made tons of plays, and Sawyer Robertson was obviously, I was huge on Sawyer. I thought he would be the Big 12 player of the year. I mean, at this point, the Big 12 player of the year is Jacob Rodriguez. So you look at the Heisman Trophy favorites, it's Fernando Mendoza, it's Ty Simpson. I mean, so heading into the season, this being the year of the quarterback, I would say has been a complete and utter disappointment for this conference. It's gone the complete opposite direction, and for multiple reasons. One, Sam Levitt has been in and out of lineup all year. He's dealt with injuries. Two, Rocco Becht, and we could deep dive that on what's gone wrong for Rocco, but his numbers are atrocious, especially, coming off his worst game maybe ever. And just those two guys who are both, looks like, coming back next season to try to solidify a spot as an NFL quarterback into next year. So I feel, and Hoover's been good. I feel like there's been some up and down games for him. The Kansas State game's one that stands out as being a down game for him. So, yeah, I think this has been a huge disappointment for the quarterback position. Noah Fafita and Jalen Daniels are two names we talked about earlier as meeting this week. We didn't even mention them. They may be having the best years of the quarterback this year. And those were two guys who they could have good years. They've showed it before, but they weren't even in our top 5 in the preseason. Mm-hmm. So, overwhelmingly, and it's sort of interesting because I think if you told me before the season started, hey, by the way, this year's going to be a huge disappointment for the quarterbacks. We think this is the year of the quarterback, and it's not going to be. How do you think the season ends up? I would have probably told you, yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be very successful for the Big 12. I wouldn't have projected that in a year that we expected to be run by quarterbacks, James, that we'd be sitting here with the potential for 2. At this point, it looks like there's a really good chance the Big 12 is getting 2 teams. A slight chance for 3, but that seems absurd, right? So if you told me before the season the Big 12 would be in position to get 2 or maybe even 3 teams into the playoff, and the quarterbacks were not that good this year, huh?
Right.
What?
I think it goes to show that while it's the most important position on the field, that you can win by building a team around a quarterback. I think the importance of being balanced on both sides of the ball has been magnified more than ever. The nation's leader in passing yards is Sawyer Robertson at Baylor.
Wow.
The nation's leader in passing touchdowns
by the way,
Sawyer Robertson at Baylor.
He's needed to. He's needed every one of those yards and touchdowns.
Yep.
To get Baylor as close to, where are they? 4-3?
They're 5-4 and 4-3.
Yeah. Aside from the 30-3, the lowest point total they've given up this year, aside from 3 points to UCF this past week, was 24.
Mm-hmm.
So he's needed that. They needed every yard that Sawyer Robertson's given them on the through the air.
Josh Hoover is top 11, but TCU's unranked. Bear Bachmeier isn't anywhere to be found because I think he's more than a system quarterback, but he doesn't put up the type of numbers that these other guys do.
He's, at this point, run first, pass second.
Yep.
And teams try to force him to throw the football. And he's been effective at it, but not to the tune of, what's Sawyer's numbers? Is he
right. He's got almost 3,000 yards already.
Does he have 3,000 yards? Yeah.
Brendan Sorsby is top 7 in the country in yards per completion. The Big 12 has 2 of the top 8 quarterbacks in yards per game. The league has 3 of the top 15 quarterbacks nationally in passing efficiency. Baron Morton, by the way, is 5th in the country in passing efficiency. So, like, stacked up against other leagues, the comparison on paper, yeah, the Big 12's doing fine. But I think that the key thing is, to your point, the quarterbacks that have been really elite are playing for teams that are unranked and haven't had the help with their supporting cast. Complementary football, turnovers, line of scrimmage, everything that goes in to being a well-balanced, complete football team, which if you look at the teams that went deep in last year's college football playoff, they leaned on their ground game, line of scrimmage, defense, and had pretty good quarterbacks, but not first-round NFL draft pick Cam Ward-type quarterbacks.
Well, and maybe that's the issue here. In when you talk with coaches about expectations, like, coaches hate expectations. Coaches may, in their own mind, have expectations for certain players for the team, but publicly they would never say them because this is a classic overpromise, underdeliver at the quarterback position of the Big 12. It felt like, now that we framed the conversation the way we're framing it, a totally different story than what we framed at the beginning of the year. And that is essentially like they've got to have 2 first-round picks at quarterback. Otherwise, what a disappointing year this is going to be. So, like, the expectations are probably so skewed. And then there's been some surprises, both positively and negatively. I think Brendan Sorsby has outperformed expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Bear Bachmeier has obviously outperformed expectations. I think to a degree, Devin Dampier has outperformed expectations. Baron Morton's sort of an enigma, and we didn't really mention him in the preseason talk around the year of the quarterback. He's probably outperformed expectations, but dealt with injuries all year. So he's very under the radar. So some of this is on framing, is on us in terms of the expectations of the season. What I think is really interesting too, James, is Rocco Becht. Rocco Becht's a really interesting case study here because, I mean, Rocco Becht, I believe, when it's all said and done, will be a first-round NFL draft pick at quarterback. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's got a lot of things between the ears that you can't teach. Like, there's just a lot there to like. And I think he's got the skill to back it up. But this year has been not very good for him and obviously not very good for Iowa State. I mean, you just look at their year-over-year numbers, Rocco specifically, and, I mean, he's not on pace to get close to where he was last year. And then, of course, if you narrow it down, like what Rocco's numbers were the first 5 games of the season, not even close to what they have been the last 4. And I think it's just a great, like, example of something that's really important to note in football, which is in football, everything affects everything else. So if you remove one ingredient, all of a sudden the other ingredients don't commingle in the same way, which makes it less effective. And you could play that metaphor out in so many different capacities. Like they say in working out, like if you do the wrong form, that's going to have an impact on the type of muscles you're working out. Are you straining muscle, right? Like, so it's like everything affects everything else. Your health, your nutrition. But like, again, going back to the cooking metaphor, like there are certain ingredients that come together to make a taste and a flavor. If you're missing an ingredient, it won't have that same piece. And I think football is just like that. Rocco Becht's numbers are much worse this year. Does that mean he's much worse? Or does that mean the team around is much worse, which has then impacted over the course of the season his ability to be an effective passer?
Exactly.
His confidence.
And it's totally that. I mean, he is still the same guy. And he has struggled with his confidence, as Travis Hines documents here. He was really down after their 4th straight loss. He was dejected. He didn't want to talk to the media. He just didn't have a lot to say. And he was visibly just looked defeated. And I love Matt Campbell's approach that he's trying to inject.
Well, he referred to the season the game that Rocco had as spectacular.
Yeah. Called it spectacular, and he barely completed 50% of his passes, 186 yards and a touchdown and a pick. And this article notes that fans thought he looked uncomfortable in the pocket. He was off target on some throws. And Matt Campbell came to his defense, and it felt like a move to protect his confidence after a 4th straight loss. And I just like the way Matt Campbell is balancing this whole thing between he's got to restore his confidence, but at the same time address the issues that the team has for losing 4 in a row, which any of those 4 losses, do you point at Rocco Becht and say, well, he wasn't good enough? I don't think so.
Certainly, you could point to the defense. I mean, the numbers are glaring. Points allowed, 14.2 points per game in their 5 wins. In the last 4, 31.8. Here is what Matt Campbell said following the latest loss for Iowa State on Saturday.
Our consistency globally on the offensive side of the football has to be better. But again, there's a lot of guys working through a lot of things on that side right now. And I think, again, from my end of it, what Rocco is doing is he's certainly giving us a chance to win every Saturday. I mean, it's what he's done since he's, played here every single game. So, again, that position gets magnified anytime, whether you win or whether you lose. It's just the world we live in. But, what I couldn't be prouder of is his toughness, his grit, and his work through, through the ups and downs of feeling, the challenge of winning and losing a football game. But I think he's playing really good football.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes Matt Campbell just, spouts platitudes in order to do that. I think in this case, there's 2 things he's doing here. One, he's 100% right. The quarterback's always going to be the target when things don't go right. And he just mentioned it's part of the entire offensive ecosystem that's not playing well. The other thing is, and you mentioned this, he's instilling a confidence in his quarterback because he's starting to see that confidence wane. Mm-hmm. And he needs to know that I'm not looking to the bench. I'm not looking to replace you. You're our guy. I still believe you're our guy. And you need to have knowledge of that, both privately, as I'm sure Matt Campbell has shared with him, and publicly. Having the public support is really important here. And I think, again, this we're talking specifically about Rocco Becht here, James, but this is true for everybody. Because we do evaluate the quarterback position as we just did in a completely different way than we evaluate the rest of the football team, and everything impacts everything else. They're giving up 31.8 points per game.
Right.
In their winning streak where they went 5-0, they were giving up 14 points a game. Think about the mentality of the quarterback when your defense is giving up 31.8 points per game. Think Sawyer Robertson is dealing with this? Do we think Sawyer Robertson is having a bad year, a good year? I mean, the numbers say he's having a really good year, but overall, it's has he been good enough to help them win games? I don't know. It's just the mentality of we need to score 32 points in order to get us to where we need to go. The other thing is, you look at the third down numbers, because you're obvious in what you're trying to do on offense. You're now in longer third downs. You're now completing your third downs at a lower percentage. Everything impacts everything else. The entire ecosystem is thrown out of whack.
And he's still done his part. He had over 300 yards against BYU. He had over 300 yards against Cincinnati. Trying to keep Iowa State in those football games. The defense has been a mess. And to magnify that, Iowa State in league games has the 3rd worst defense in the conference. Only Oklahoma State and West Virginia is giving up more yards per play. 6.4 yards per play. The opponent is gaining each and every snap against Iowa State's defense. In league games, they're giving up over 415 yards per contest. Their rushing defense in league play, they're giving up 170 yards. Their passing defense in league play, they're giving up 250. They've allowed the 3rd most touchdown. The defense has been a mess, and a lot of it, I think, is injury-related, things that are totally out of anybody's control, and definitely Rocco Becht's control, which for next year, because he's only a junior, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a junior. Yeah, he got his redshirt year his freshman year. So he's going to be going into his 4th year as a starter next year. And kind of like we did Fafita this year, or Jalen Daniels, everybody's going to write off Iowa State because of the year they're having. So keeping his confidence up to put him in a position to have all the gaudy numbers and everything else that he did the last 2 seasons, I think is a really good move and key for Iowa State down the stretch. And then they just need to make a bowl. Coming up next, by the way, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We've got our producer Taman over here on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios. Let's get it on. Debate segment before we grab Baylor coach Nikki Collin. The women's basketball team got a huge win on Monday over Duke. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league.
Jenkins, the tight end Henry on the
Back inside Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. You are listening to us on TuneIn. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We had Chris Level from the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network earlier. We're about 15 away from grabbing Baylor women's basketball coach Nikki Collin here on the program. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios and Big12Studios.com. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Producer Taman jumps in here because it's time to do what, Taman?
Let's get it on! It's time to let's get it on. And I have to say this, guys. You know, one of my favorite games to play when I'm not playing Let's Get It On is I like to play hypothetical with myself. And, you know, we saw the college football ranking, the first rankings come out earlier this week. And I started thinking to myself, you know, hypothetically, I had to ask this question to you guys. The college football matchup, let's say this, for the Big 12. What's better for the Big 12? A BYU versus Notre Dame game or Texas Tech versus Oregon? Who you guys got?
Man, two banger potential matchups. So that's what the matchups would be right now today based off the college football playoff rankings in the first round. BYU would be hosting Notre Dame, and Texas Tech would be hosting Oregon. Who do you have?
I mean, I think the answer here is
Don't think.
Texas Tech and Oregon. When I look at both of these potential matchups in the Big 12, just based on SP Plus, Football Power Index, I would still put Oregon on a neutral site as a favorite against Texas Tech, but I think the line between Notre Dame and BYU would be much larger. I think Texas Tech, with their top 10 defense, top rushing defense in the country, would choke out Oregon's strength on offense, which is in that rushing attack. Now, it's multifaceted, don't get me wrong. They've got a ton of playmakers. But for me, that offense with Oregon starts with their ability to run the football effectively. So when you can choke that out, and a big reason why I think Texas Tech's going to win on Saturday against BYU, I think it makes defending the back end a lot easier. I think Jacob Rodriguez would be the best player in that game. So again, despite the fact that I believe Oregon would still be favored in that game, I think the line would be a lot less than what it would be if BYU played Texas Tech. Sorry, if BYU played Notre Dame.
I hear you. I see you. I feel you. But give me BYU against Notre Dame. Two national brands built on identity and tradition, faith, football factory. This would be a TV, this would be gold for the Big 12 from a television viewership perspective. Notre Dame averaged almost 4 million viewers per game last year on NBC. Meanwhile, BYU has one of the most loyal alumni fan bases. And then the other thing, just in terms of the play on the field, give me a Notre Dame team that made it all the way to the national championship, that everybody's gunning for, with a freshman quarterback. Bear Bachmeier isn't the only freshman quarterback playing in high-level games this season. C.J. Carr is a freshman at Notre Dame. So you've got almost a wash there at quarterback in terms of the moment. Something tells me, in what I've seen from C.J. Carr, who's beating teams like Navy and Georgia, who else has Notre Dame played this season that's not very good?
Boise State.
Thank you. Boise State, NC State, Boston College, Purdue. Like, give me a guy like Bear who has played the Texas Techs and the Utahs, teams, the Cincinnatis, who they play next week in this hypothetical matchup. I think BYU's physicality would be such an uptick from what Notre Dame has seen and what they're going to see over the next 3 weeks with Pitt and Syracuse and Stanford, and they play Navy. They just beat Boston College 25-10. That doesn't wow me. Give me BYU to pull off that upset with Bear against Notre Dame and their freshman quarterback.
Well, and what I will say, if we're talking about which matchup is better for the conference, I was thinking it from the scope of like who has the better chance to win their matchup,
Yeah.
as opposed to the theatrics of the game itself, which, as you mentioned at the front end.
Yeah, I kind of lumped it all together.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the conversation. But yeah, I mean, I would agree there. But for me, the biggest distinction here would be Notre Dame's top 10 SP Plus defense versus BYU's 25th ranked SP Plus offense. Bear Bachmeier has been very good, but to what standard?
We'll find out tomorrow. Saturday, I mean.
But I mean, like, we had a standard for Rocco Becht and Sam Levitt that was so, it's like they're going to be first round picks. What was our standard? What was our thought or expectation for Bear Bachmeier, right? So really easy to over deliver on an under promise. Very difficult to over deliver on an over promise. And that's the Rocco Becht, Sam Levitt stories we just discussed. So Bachmeier's been tremendous for a true freshman quarterback. There's things he's been very good at, but I think you can't win a playoff game without being multifaceted on offense, and I'm not sure that they're multifaceted enough. BYU has the weapons. You know, for Utah, I'm worried about, like, do they have weapons? Ryan Davis has emerged at wide receiver for Utah, but, like, does BYU have the weapons, or does BYU have the ability for the quarterback to read a defense and take advantage of the weapons, you know, as much as his running game really buoys their success?
I would trust him to be better at that than Notre Dame's C.J. Carr. Like, C.J. Carr against Boston College was 18 for 25, had a couple of touchdowns, no picks. He was not great against USC, 136 yards, a touchdown, had an interception, threw a pick against NC State. Like, his numbers are very Bear Bachmeier-like in terms of he's just kind of a game manager on paper, but he doesn't have the rushing. He's a pocket passer. I think Bear with his legs would be the better quarterback in this game. But to your point, it would come down to, can BYU's defense make enough plays against a really good Notre Dame defense? Because that would be a game the first team to 17 wins that hypothetical matchup, whereas Texas Tech and Oregon's got a top 10 recruiting class year over year. Texas Tech with that top-ranked transfer portal class, all the Oregon flash, the offense, first team to 40 wins type game, that'd be a banger too.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for that. We have another topic, but let's hear it one more time. Sorry, I messed that up. Let's get it on! All right. So I'm watching the Arizona-Florida game the other night. I'm thinking Florida's the national champions. Arizona has this sensational freshman in Koa Pete. But I'm thinking to myself, you know, Houston is still the top dog in the Big 12. I know they had a disappointing loss in the championship game last year, but I think they're obviously the favorite going into this season. So I thought to myself, and I thought I'd ask this question, guys, who's the biggest threat to Houston in the Big 12?
I'm going BYU. They only play once in the regular season. So that tells me that even if Houston wins that game, maybe they take a couple L's elsewhere. And I just look at BYU having potentially the number one pick in the NBA draft with A.J. DeBonsa. And then Richie Saunders taking his game to another level. All of their shooting, their spacing. And I was blown away by Kiba Keita and how good he looked in their opener against Villanova. Like, I think their inside presence is very underrated. They're going to rebound the basketball at a high level. They are much better than they were a season ago this early in the year when they kind of struggled out of the gate and started really slow in Big 12 play. But for me, it comes down to having potentially the best player in the league in DeBonsa with just how NBA ready he is. He's so smooth. He can do so many things. So I'm leaning BYU.
Yeah, so I think there's three obvious answers here for teams that could knock off Houston this year. I think the obvious answers are BYU, Arizona, and Texas Tech. I'm going to go with Kansas, though.
I thought about Kansas.
And one of the major question marks about Kansas coming into this season is, do they have the depth? We know about Darren Peterson, Flory Bidunga. But I think what we've seen, there's two guys that were out all of last season that had played the year before as true freshmen for Kansas, Marco Jackson and Jamari McDowell, that give them some really good secondary ball handling off the bench, both of those guys. So when you look at depth and question marks, I think they've got, Darren Peterson can handle the basketball. He's a guy that's going to initiate the offense a ton. And I think coming off the bench, you get Marco Jackson, you get Jamari McDowell as guys that are secondary ball handlers. The biggest question I have is, can they be a consistent three-point shooting team? But as we see with Arizona, you probably need to shoot more than 5 per game, but there's a balance there between shooting 5 and shooting 27. I don't think Kansas needs to be a 27-shot three-point shooting team. They can be effective and efficient with less shots and still be very effective within the offense. Darren Peterson can score a ton. I think they can get enough of an inside presence. And look, if Cole Rosario, Jaden Dawson, those guys start hitting some threes, now I think they've got something. But I think already in one game and a couple of preseason games, we've seen that this team probably has a little bit more depth than what was expected, because there were guys that weren't really thought of coming into the season. Bryson Tiller's another one.
Yeah, yep.
That I think, like, Bryson Tiller is a guy that can defend you, can rebound the basketball. Like, you look for it, like, their top-level guys, Bidunga, like, he's a rim protector, shot blocker. But then behind him, a Bryson Tiller can come off the bench. Behind Darren Peterson, handling the basketball. They've got point guards on their roster that can really handle the basketball. So I think they have a lot more depth than the expectation. And when you are top-heavy with Peterson, with Bidunga, two guys that are going to be first-round picks in the next year's draft, I think you got a ton of potential here, and they're very under the radar, which is where I'd love Kansas to be.
People are sleeping on the Hawks. That streak of being preseason number 1 in the AP Top 25 came to an end this year, and now they're way too low when you look at that team and just how talented they are. All right, Taman, good stuff. Coming up next, Baylor women's basketball coach Nikki Collin will join us live on the program. They are coming off a massive win over Duke over in Paris, France. We'll chat about the trip, what it means for the Big 12 and for the Baylor Bears coming up around the corner. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn and on your screen via Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios with Ari Timken. I'm James Westling, Taman on the controls to our left, and we are uber pumped to welcome in Nikki Collin, the head coach of the Baylor women's basketball team. Huge win over Duke to tip off the season, the first season-opening win over a top 10 team by any Big 12 school since 2009. Hey, Coach.
Hey, I didn't know that.
We're all about dropping fun facts here on Big 12 today. So bulletin board material, you can post it in the locker room. But man, that was awesome. Tell us about the trip. How long were you guys there? When did you get back? Were you able to do some touristy stuff, or were you just kind of in a basketball bubble?
Did you steal anything from the Louvre?
Actually, we were very much able to do some things outside of basketball. We went in on Wednesday, so really needed time to get acclimated to time change, but did the Eiffel Tower, went to the Louvre, did a boat tour on the Seine. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff. Went to Nike Innovation, had stopped by the ambassador's house. So it was a good trip, and it certainly basketball was the priority, but we were there with enough time to do a lot of other stuff, and for our players to even have a little free time to just walk the city.
Nikki, what was the impetus for this? Obviously playing a team like Duke is great to start off the year, but what was the impetus for making this trip to Paris?
Yeah, I mean, we got asked to do it. They started it. This was the third year. The first year, South Carolina and Notre Dame played. They turned it into a 2-game event last year. Lee Miller, who runs Atlantis and does other events, had asked us to do it a year ago. And I think they wanted us to play USC. And we were already going to the Bahamas last year. And, just for budget reasons, the idea of leaving the country twice and what that means in terms of fundraising was a little much. And so we said, hey, we won't do it this year, but sign us up for next year. So, we kind of committed to doing it before we knew who the opponent was going to be. We certainly knew it was going to be a top 20 opponent because they really haven't invited anybody to the event that wasn't at that level. So we knew we were going to get a great opponent. When we found out it was Duke, certainly, especially the run they had to end the year and everything they returned, we knew it was going to be a tough matchup. But we just knew it was a good way for us to kind of see where we were at and give our players an amazing experience. And, and obviously it turned into a win, which was that much better. But one way or the other, we were going to learn a lot about our team. And so, if you don't put too much on the first game of the year, win or lose, then you have an opportunity to grow from it.
Yeah, like you said, you go over there and you're trying to see where you're at because you've got some new pieces. You've got a baller guard in Talia Scott who just took over this game and finished with 24. But leading up to the game, you don't know what it's going to look like on the floor and how these players are going to work within your system and what the chemistry is going to be like. So was there anything that surprised you once the players went out and got this win?
Not really. I thought our defense was a little better than I thought it had been, through practice. I thought we still struggled with our defensive transition, but I thought we locked in pretty well and did a good job taking away first options. I thought our rim protection was really good. I think the biggest surprise was going double big in this game. We really haven't had a chance to spend much time on the practice court with Kirsten and Kyla because Kyla had been out with an ankle injury. And so, it was a lineup when Bella not went down, but when she got in foul trouble and we had to go into the bench. We felt like we needed more rim protection and, maybe not as good an offensive lineup, but a better defensive lineup to go big. So, there's give and take in those situations, but I've been saying for, 6 weeks that Talia Scott's a professional scorer. So, I really wasn't surprised by that. I think when you get into those type of games, even watching it back, I've probably cut it twice since the game ended. And, both defenses were really good. Duke does a good job of not over rotating. They don't give you any easy kick outs. They don't have a lot of obvious breakdowns. So you got to let players make plays. And I thought that's something that within our offense and how we play, that we kind of allowed Talia to do that. We allowed Bugs to do that. It wasn't Jana's best game, but it was her first real game back from a season-ending injury, and she's going against an all-defensive player in Jaden Donovan, who's athletic and blocks shots and has length, and so, I think we have a lot of room to grow, but I certainly think that, we did a lot of things right to finish the game with a win.
Was making this trip a really good opportunity for the team to bond and get to know each other in maybe ways they weren't able to before, making a trip to internationally like that?
I always think you think of summer tours that way when you've got 10 days and there's no pressure of the basketball because you're usually playing, inferior opponents, and the trip is really about the 10 days of practice before and then the team building on the trip. I think this team had already kind of formed pretty good bonds over the summer. We're very intentional about doing a lot of that, especially with a new group. But I certainly think this is a group that likes one another, which makes it easy. And so I think they enjoyed the cultural aspect. I think they enjoyed, the getting dressed up and, kind of showing off different sides of themselves and having a good time. But I don't think we had to lean into that as much with this group because I think they've already kind of formed those bonds over the summer.
What do we need to know about like a Bella or a Bugs or a Talia Scott, like off the floor? Like what are some maybe interesting anecdotes that give us a good sense of their personalities?
I always say Bella's most likely to be our next president. I think she's somebody that commands a room. She can take a thought for the day, and weave it into her prayer before practice. Like just highly, highly intelligent. Has done such a good job being an ambassador for our program, traveling with the Big 12, doing a bunch of different things like that. So just really, really intelligent. Bugs is she knows the words to every song of every genre of, I feel like, for the last 40 years. Like, whatever her parents listened to growing up, whatever, like Bugs can sing, but she just knows the words. And Talia's funny. She's sarcastic. She's got a lot of, she's got a little bit of Nikki Collin in her. Like she can dish it. She can take it, but she can dish it, which I appreciate. I always say, like, when players first get to Baylor, the first thing they have to understand about me is sarcasm is my love language. And so, once they understand when I'm, just poking fun at them versus when it's serious, then they're over the hump. And like Kirsten Johnson was running this summer on the track, and afterwards, I was kind of mimicking her running style late. And I said, you do know, sarcasm is my love language. And she just looked at me and said, clearly. And so, when they get it, you've got them. So that's, but you asked about those three. Those are, kind of three fun facts about them.
Yeah, Nikki, I'm afraid I have a 10 and 7-year-old boys. I'm afraid like people are not going to get there. Like me and my wife are so sarcastic that it's like, I'm a little bit afraid of how they're going to view our kids because we're so sarcastic with our kids.
I think it's tough. You have to know your audience, obviously. Like, I think that's the, I remember being in college and coaching girls softball, rec league softball. And I was awesome with the 4th and 5th graders because the sarcasm went right over their head. They didn't understand it. But the 7th and 8th graders, boy, they couldn't. Everything was so serious. And, it was just such a clique type age where they didn't want to be made fun of. And it's like it's just kind of who I am. And so I can take it too, But yeah, like it's very much the first thing about me. Like, I've got a pretty quick wit, And, like people think I'm sitting on these things and I'm not. Like it just literally is kind of how I function. So, I think the players learn really quickly, but the real black white ones, in terms of how they think, like you can see them like take a minute, look at me and go, okay, she was kidding. Like it's okay.
That's how I react to every text that I get from Ari. We need like a sarcasm font via text because it can be very difficult to tell if he's serious or if he's messing with me.
Right.
Coach, did you rap after the game? Was there a post-game locker room rap?
There was not a post-game locker room rap. There was like just, I knew the water was coming, so I went in armed, but I still probably definitely was more drenched than I've ever been. And, it's funny. Like if you don't let them celebrate, if we're serious all the time, then what are we doing coaching college athletics? Because I get it's a business. I get that it's never, you can't look at what's the next lawsuit. Is it going to be 5 for 5? Like what's happening next? Like it's just like you almost have to find ways to live in the moment, or the rest of it'll just stress you out. And so, I think you let them enjoy it, and you just get them to understand that this isn't our Super Bowl. Like this is the first game of the season, and it's good to celebrate, and I'm proud of them. Nobody picked us to win the game. I get that, and nobody probably should have. When you look at the rankings, when you look at who they had returning, when you look at how they finished their season, and Kara Lawson was named Team USA head coach. Like they just had all these things going for them. But it also is just the first game, and it'll wear off really quickly if you turn around and you don't take care of business against Lindenwood, or you don't play well against UNLV. Like we have a good schedule, preseason schedule. So this should just be a game that motivates us to keep getting better.
There was an awesome stretch in this game, talking with Nikki Collin, the head women's basketball coach at Baylor, fresh off their win over Duke. So the game's tied at 43, and then Talia Scott just goes off like a flurry of buckets within a 90-second stretch to push your lead to 6 early in the fourth quarter. Was that something where you just sit back and she's just in that mode where everybody knows, get her the ball, get out of the way type thing? And how many times have you seen that in practice? I'm sure too.
Not as much as I should have, truthfully. And I think a lot of that is, I thought, that stretch, Jana was out of the game. So Talia was running the point. And, it was, I needed to calm Jana down. And, I thought Talia, the ball was just in her hands. And I've always said, the ball will find its way to the right person, but at the same time, when that right person starts with the ball in her hands, I thought we had a big lineup out there, so we had good screening, but a lot of that was just kind of in transition, playing off a step up, getting downhill, playing off horns. I didn't feel like I had a good package of offense when I went to the double big lineup. Like we just haven't spent a ton of time with that lineup, so the best thing I could do was keep it in horns, where we could bring the defenders out and give her room to play. And so, yeah, you play to your advantages in those situations. And when you play against elite defenses, you got to have players plays. And so just putting her in space, I thought as the game wore on, neither team played super deep. And so because of that, I thought that we got them a little more spread out in the fourth quarter. If you look at the first quarter versus the fourth, when we played in transition off our step-ups, off our drags, they were doing a good job of being on the midline and congesting on drives. And I thought by late in the game, they were getting a little bit more stretched out. And so, Talia was able to get all the way to the rim.
Yeah, she was really good. Finished with 24. Can't think of a better way to tip off the season than a top 10 win. Baylor got it against Duke over in France. Coach, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck against Lindenwood on Sunday.
Thank you so much, guys.
Nikki Collin, women's basketball coach for the Baylor Bears. Baylor picks up the 58-52 win over Duke over in Paris to tip off the season. It was tight through those first 3 quarters, and then Talia Scott just completely took over for Baylor. Huge win for the conference. All right, coming up next, we pivot back to the BYU-Texas Tech football game. John Beck's going to join us, former BYU quarterback, was the signal caller from 03 to 06. That'll be heard on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios.
And he
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. All things, all Big 12, all the time. This is the Big 12. This is a different league. You're watching us streaming live on the Big 12 Fast channel, Big12Studios.com, YouTube, and more. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. And now we are joined by a guy that threw for over 11,000 yards when he was the BYU quarterback. John Beck joins us. What's up, John?
How you guys doing?
Man, we are pumped for this game Saturday. Hey, are you still doing your quarterback training program?
Yeah, that's what I do. 3D QB, private quarterback training. Been doing that since I finished playing.
Man, you've worked with guys like Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Jared Goff. Like, these are some big names.
Who?
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate. You know, a lot of people, when they kind of start getting into the private training, usually you start with the younger ages and you hope that some of your younger guys make it big. Because of me kind of jumping into this, it was kind of for myself. When I was still playing in the NFL, I started working with a guy named Tom House. That's the person who was training Drew Brees and Tom Brady, and I got connected to him through Drew, who I had been training with for a handful of years while living in San Diego in the off seasons. And so I was super fortunate that right at the tail end of my playing time, I was getting to spend a lot of time with Tom, and it just kind of worked out where going into my 7th season, I wasn't with the team for the off season. He invited me to stay there and learn from him, and that's when guys like Matt Ryan started reaching out, and it just kind of trickled from there. And the agency that represented me asked me to start doing draft prep for incoming draft guys. That then kind of blew up into then other agencies requesting for draft prep, and it's just taken off from there.
Yeah, the Tom House story is so interesting to me. John, I mean, you're a former NFL quarterback. You were an NFL draft pick. Tom House was a baseball player. Like, what?
Yeah.
How did he become this world-renowned quarterbacks coach?
I mean, the funny thing was, I was a huge baseball player growing up, and my dad had actually bought all of Tom's books.
Wow.
And so I remember seeing Tom House books highlighted in my house, a bunch of notes that my dad had taken for, here's what we're going to do to strengthen your arm. Here's some of the drills we're going to use for pitching. Here's the like bands that we're going to work with and dumbbells. And so when I was talking to Drew Brees one day, asking him some of the things he was doing, he goes, "Have you ever heard of Tom House?" And my mind went back to all those books when I was like a kid and teenager, like, yeah, the baseball guy?
Baseball player?
And anyway, that's exactly it. But really what it was Tom was a pioneer in the baseball world, and a lot of those things had not come into the football world yet. And so at the beginning of this, the things that we were doing with quarterbacks, nobody was doing. Nowadays, because technology and a lot of information has spread very quickly, a lot of people are doing what the baseball world was doing for quarterbacks. And so it's not so unique now, but back in 2000 and I think 12 was when I first met with Tom. Really, this was all brand new to the football world, and it made it really cool.
The guy we're talking to here on Big 12 today is John Beck, who threw for 32 touchdowns and just 8 interceptions his last year at BYU, spent 7 years in the NFL, now mentors a lot of these guys. So take us through this quarterback matchup on Saturday from a almost scouting, NFL scout perspective. What do you see when you look at Bear Bachmeier for BYU? And then tell us about Baron Morton at Texas Tech.
All right, well, I've known Bear for a long time, dating all the way back to when he was in junior high. We had trained his older brother, Hank, who played for a number of colleges, and we did draft prep with Hank. So, I mean, Bear's just a kid. I've watched him develop through high school. I've seen what he's been able to grow into. He's just such a dynamic, big player who can utilize the run game, be able to take the hits in the run game. A lot of the times, you know, you don't want your drop back quarterback taking that many hits in the run game, but Bear is just built in a way that the run game is such a part of his style of play. And you've seen him develop as a thrower, getting acclimated to the collegiate game. Bear was a very dynamic thrower in high school. His school, Murrieta Valley, actually, the school that I help out quarterbacks with, San Clemente, we played them a number of times. And Bear's always been able to do a lot with his arms and his legs, and you've seen him grow as a college passer. You've watched his progression and maturity in the way that he led BYU in the passing game in that Iowa State victory. And so I've just seen Bear grow throughout the year, and I think that his style of play really fits well into the system that BYU is running. And it sounds like they're going to get L.J. Martin back for this game. You can bet on it. Texas Tech is going to be throwing a lot of their dynamic defensive looks and fronts at him. Being a young quarterback still, Bear only has 8 starts under his belt. And, you know, he's getting used to the collegiate game and scheme. And Texas Tech throws a variety of schemes. And so my guess is there's going to be a lot on his plate as he heads into preparation for this week. Baron Morton, you know, I've watched him play in the beginning of the season, and then I know he suffered an injury. I think he's a guy that can be creative in the way that he is attacking defenses. I haven't been able to see him as much as I've obviously followed Bear, being a person that trained Bear and follows BYU. But in the times that I've seen him, I watched him a little bit in that Kansas State game. I see somebody that has aggressiveness and is smart with the ball. You guys will know better than me, like if the injury has affected him coming back, just because I haven't been able to see as much of like I said. But you can see what Texas Tech is trying to do with him in the way that they utilize the past game to complement everything else that they're doing offensively. I think he's a guy that I'm sure wants to prove a lot. Anytime you have a team in a position that's top 10 in the country, you have a lot to prove. And I think that he's a guy that you can tell with his style of play that he's not going to be shy about taking those opportunities and taking those chances when given an opportunity to drive a ball downfield.
John, the full context of Bear is just insane. I mean, he was in Palo Alto in spring. And to think that a true freshman who was playing quarterback at high school football last year could spend spring at Stanford and then be the starting quarterback for a team with high aspirations and expectations. I mean, have you ever seen anything like it?
It's so unique. Obviously, nowadays with transfer portals, you see guys move all the time. But to have a guy move in the summer, basically, late spring, early summer, because of finishing up classes and everything before he could, officially come over, he gets there, I want to say late May, I believe, starts working with the team in the summer. Obviously, they have two guys that were battling for the starting spot in spring ball when everybody kind of realized, coming out of spring ball, when everybody realized the Jake Retzlaff situation. And so, in summer camp, obviously Bear's not going to be handed a bunch of one reps in summer camp, but he goes into training camp, gets to be involved in the battle, and to have a guy only be there a few months to absorb the offense in a way that he's competing in a way that the coaches say, man, maybe this guy needs to be our starting quarterback to win the job, and then to come out and play the way that he's played and to make such good decisions. That's the very impressive thing. He's still I don't even know if Bear's 19 yet. I mean, he's still just a young guy, but because of his experience playing so much football in high school, he was given an opportunity to compete for the starting job at Stanford in spring ball. So that's kind of unique also to come out of high school and the very first college you get to in spring is giving you a chance to compete. He's had great opportunities and he's done a great job with those opportunities, but it is very impressive going back to absorbing a playbook, a collegiate playbook, stepping into a new environment, and leading a football team the way he has been very impressive.
John Beck was the BYU quarterback, spent 03 to 06 with the Cougars, threw for over 11,000 yards and 79 career touchdowns. John, in terms of Bear and his development, all the things you were talking about with what Texas Tech is going to throw at him, with all the different angles and different schematics, what have you seen in how he has managed that portion of dissecting a defense, all the mental things that go into that position?
Well, Bear's a very smart kid. Just the fact that a Stanford quarterback, there's going to be a lot, whenever you're one of those guys, from an intelligence, the way that you can process information. The other thing I think that helps Bear a lot is he's a very calm demeanor. I know for those that have watched BYU football games, you just see what looks like a kid chewing on his mouthpiece. It almost reminds me of like a little Pop Warner kid that's out there just kind of like, all right, this is my first year of football. I'm taking it in right now, and he's just got that calm look on his face. Bear is just a very calm and composed individual, and I think because of that, it's the same approach that he takes as he prepares. We've been able to have a few discussions over the course of the season about, situations, about playing in big games. When he went to go play in the Utah game, that's a huge game for a freshman to play in, and he probably didn't even fully understand the magnitude of what that game meant to BYU fans in the state of Utah, and he just stepped in and calmly handled all of it. And I think as he prepares for all these different fronts, the one thing that I think he always has in his back pocket is, I'm just going to go play football, and if I got to take off and make something with my legs, I can do it, and it's going to be something positive. And he's done it time and time again.
As a BYU alum, Can you just speak to how big of a deal this game on Saturday is, given, that you competed in the Mountain West? There are times where BYU is, unaffiliated with the conference, but for BYU to be in the Big 12 now and be in this game as a top 10 team heading into the playoff, heading into the stretch run here before the college football playoff, can you just speak to how incredible that is as a BYU alum and fan, and just how far of a road it's been?
Yeah, well, I think going back to when BYU joined the Big 12, that was huge for the fan base. I know me as a former player, the Mountain West was cool, but the Big 12 is awesome for this university to be a part of. And the excitement of joining it, stepping in, getting a chance to have a really, really exciting season last year, coming very close to being a team playing in the Big 12 championship, to now be sitting at the top of the Big 12, to play against Texas Tech in this huge matchup. I think just last night somebody was telling me that people are already camping out there at the stadium. I mean, to have ESPN Game Day be there, it is everything that I think BYU had hoped for in joining this conference and being a contender. And in what a way to be able to have both of these teams, as ESPN unveils its top seeding for where the playoff standings would sit right now, to have both these schools sitting there, to have an opportunity for both of these teams are looking at the Big 12 championship saying, we want to end up there, we want to be the champions, and to have a chance to play in a regular season game. To me, this is as big as anything BYU's ever been a part of in conference play before. I know I had an opportunity to be a conference champion, but it was before there was even a conference championship game in the Mountain West. For where BYU is sitting right now, and this time frame that they've had of independence and now being back in a conference, to me a game like this is everything that being a part of a conference and being at the top is about. And I think it's so awesome. I don't know when the last time College Game Day was in Lubbock, but I remember it's got to be back during that Patrick Mahomes era, right? I remember watching the Michael Crabtree game.
No, that was it.
John, it was that game, 08.
Yeah, the Texas Tech game.
Wow, because I was trying to think. I'm like, was the Baker Mayfield Patrick Mahomes game, was that a game day game? But I do remember the Crabtree one and him catching that touchdown. I think he said he had a dream about it the night before or something like that, he thought that same way. Look, I was looking at tickets of saying, is there a way for me to get my family out to this game, just because I think it's going to be an amazing environment there at that stadium with so much at stake in this game. And I'm just so proud as a BYU alum that BYU has worked their tails off and put themselves in this position. And I'm so excited for the football players that they get to be a part of it. This is what college football is about. Games like this, a conference like this, with everything that it has going into it.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it's not inexpensive.
Right. John, gotta ask you about. I want to ask you about one of your memories when you were playing at BYU, a 33-31 win over your rival Utah. You guys were down 24-14. This is the final Saturday of November back in 06. You threw for 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone and had almost 400 yards in a come-from-behind win. That's got to be up there in terms of your BYU memories and playing days.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an exciting game. I remember we got off to a hot start. I believe we went up 14-0. And then we kind of sputtered and had a tough time, and Utah came firing back. But that's definitely been a highlight of my playing career and my time at BYU. And every year during the Holy War, I'm reminded of it. I constantly get to do some interviews here or there where they ask about, tell us what it was like. Going back to that conference play conversation, that had huge meaning in the conference. We had never been a conference champion in the Mountain West Conference since joining it. No, I think BYU did one year. I take that back. I hadn't been a part of a conference championship. I think BYU did in 01, I believe. But it's just to have those games against a rival, a big game late in the season. I think we all, as football fans, we love those late season games because the preseason hype is fun, and it's fun to see what everybody thinks is going to happen. But then you get out there, and it actually has to take place. You got to play the games. And then all of the factors come into it. You have injuries that happen. You have road games, you have these big, gigantic wins, and then all of a sudden the team falls flat the next week and they get upset by a team that no one saw coming. And that's what college football is all about. And then these late season games where now, all right, things have kind of settled and the deck is starting to take shape, and now we have these amazing matchups like this. Back at my time, when I played that game, it had been a handful of years since we had beaten Utah. And there was a lot at stake for us in the conference championship and that rivalry. And it made it super, super exciting. I think something that's cool as a BYU fan is watching some of these kind of new rivalries within the Big 12 happen for BYU, where it's starting to create some of these big games and opponents that mean something in a new conference. That's exciting as a BYU football fan to see that taking place.
Yeah, man, this time of year is the best. We are jacked up for Saturday. Number 7, BYU. Number 8, Texas Tech. Noon Eastern, 11 Central from Lubbock, Texas. John, this was great. We've got to have you back on down the road.
Sounds great. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, John.
Former BYU quarterback John Beck here on Big 12 Today. Threw for over 11,000 yards during his playing days. BYU went 11-2, won the Mountain West back in 2006. He had over 30 touchdowns, spent several years in the NFL, and now runs a quarterback training academy out in California. Some big names have gone through his program. More to come here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios, the Big 12 Fast Channel. He's Ari, I'm James. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league, and we are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo. Back inside Big 12 today, brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo. Here exclusively on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios, the Big 12 Fast Channel. On radio, our games of the week this weekend, BYU at Texas Tech, top 10 showdown, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, followed by Kansas and Arizona. The winner will be to their 6th win of the season and bowl eligible. That's at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling.
Real quick, James, I'm very curious. What was it like to be in New Kids on the Block? Were Mark and Donnie Wahlberg nice guys?
Well played. Well played. Look like I'm prepping for a Backstreet Boys concert. Can't wait. It's going to be lit. You got a problem with my jean jacket?
No.
What's wrong with my jean jacket?
I just wanted to know what it was
You know
like.
how long I've been wanting to wear? I've had this jean jacket for years.
I just wanted to know what it was like to be a New Kids on the Block. What I don't.
It's coming back. I might be a year or two later than the trends, but the 90s are back. They're so back.
Love the jacket. Looks great on you.
This guy.
It's like you're 15 minutes late for a Gap commercial shoot. Producer Taman?
We need to take a picture of James because he did to Ari yesterday and put it in AI and said he looked like a crayon color. We need to see what you ultimately look like.
It's payback. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I'm very
it's
proud.
payback.
By the way, I'm very proud that even though I did do that, I didn't like the jokes that ChatGPT came up with, so I came up with my own.
But it gets the creative juices flowing.
That's what it is.
Truly.
100%.
1,000%, which I never say.
1,000,000%.
All right, before we get to this under review, college football officials, this is a real story. So they call it a couch quarterback for a reason. Like sometimes you're watching games, and I hear guys say, "Oh yeah, I could do that. I could do that."
Do you though?
Yes, I've heard those comments.
God, if you're in a room with somebody that says that, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, I have a tough time disagreeing. So this is a real story. I fact checked this. Compton College JUCO football has a 45-year-old former Compton mayor candidate at wide receiver.
I'm sure he's a lot of former things.
His son is on the team, and he's college age ish. Then they also have a. I can't tell how old this guy is. Like the son could be 19, he could be 30.
Yeah.
I can't tell off the picture. They also have a 50-year-old defensive end on the football team. A 45-year-old and a 50-year-old. It's not going well. They've had to forfeit their final 2 games, so they end the season at 0-10, and they got outscored this year 480-12.
Wow. They scored 12 points?
They scored 12 points. Well, these guys, Lamar, he's playing receiver.
They scored 12 points in 10 games?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine if you're a college, and a JUCO is that, and you have a 45-year-old and a 50-year-old on your team, I can't imagine you're a very talented team. Can't imagine you got a lot of guys that are going to be taking the step up to go to FCS or FBS anytime soon.
No.
No, but that's an interesting one. 50.
50. This guy's a 50 burger, and he's playing. On Saturday.
Is there a picture of him?
Yeah, you want to see it?
No, I've got a few questions. Does he look 50?
Yes. Yes, he very much looks 50.
Yeah, that's a bad start. He looks 50, all right. Yeah, he looks 55 even.
Gray hair. Yeah, the whole deal.
But good for him. I'm not going to make fun of him. Good for him. I'm not going to play college football at 50. I'm not going to play college football at 40.
One hit, we'd be in the hospital.
Yeah.
I can barely get off the couch.
But imagine the coach is like, man, we've got a really thin roster here.
How old are you?
Or like sitting on the couch like I can do that. Like, okay, let's see it. Let's see it, old boy.
How did this all I haven't researched how these guys got connected with the program. Are they friends with the head coach? Is the head coach one of their sons? I mean, there's a lot of things that could be possible.
Well, when you're younger, your brain isn't fully developed. Your frontal lobe isn't fully developed until you're like in your 30s or something.
It's 25.
25, thank you.
But then it continues.
It was close.
It's 25.
I mean, I was just estimating, but I'm glad. I didn't realize you were a brain
you're right.
scientist.
I passed biology, community college level, no joke.
Did you wear the jean jacket in your brain science courses? So, like, a 25-year, like, somebody that's clearly has not had their frontal cortex totally developed.
Prefrontal cortex.
Thank you. Frontal lobe fully developed. I can imagine they're like, oh, I could do that. But a 50-year-old, like a 40-year-old, would be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. You know, like, I'm not going to get into a fist fight in a football game because I'm a grown man with children. I can't have my wife bailing me out from jail because I'm a moron. Like, there's things that when you're younger, you don't think through, and it's scientifically proven. This is one of those where it's like, at 50, you're like, I could do this. Like, go run a marathon. You know, like, there's way other ways to challenge yourself at that age.
Lift some weights.
Go run a marathon. Like, there's so many other things you could do. Get ready, do an Ironman.
Yeah, think of how much time and effort goes into being a college football player at the age of 50.
No, I won't think about that.
That's insane.
That's insane.
Dabo Swinney he's in some hot water. The ACC fined him $10,000 because he's been criticizing the refs. There was a pass interference in the Duke loss that he said was one of the worst calls he's ever seen. And basically, he brought up the point that coaches and players get crushed. Well, why not the refs? Here's what he said.
It's impactful. So, you know, as opposed to just getting a report on Monday, you turn in 10. Yeah, we had a game. I'm not criticizing. I can't tell you. I ain't gonna tell you the game. I'm not gonna say the game. But we're only allowed to turn in. You know, there's a system of accountability, but y'all don't know anything about it. It's behind a curtain. How dare we have accountability? In the meantime, we got gambling issues going on, people being suspended, all that kind of stuff, right? Yep. I mean, refs are people too. It ain't just coaches and players, and if they're a part of the game, then by God, they ought to be a part of the game. And they ought to be a part of the accountability, and they ought to be a part of the consequences, not just behind some shadowy curtain. Like, no, they ought to have to answer for it. And listen, there's judgment calls and all that, and I mean, we just have to disagree to disagree. But there's also absolute flat-out misses with no consequences. And you know, and you get a shoot. We're allowed to turn in 10 calls. All right, and so we had a game earlier this year that we lost. I had 14 I wanted to turn in, but I only turned in 10. All right. I thought 8 were wrong, but got back. Yep, missed it. 5 of the 10 were wrong. And I mean, these are game-changing calls. Obvious pass interference, not called. That takes you off the field. But yeah, we just get this will be addressed with the crew and yada, yada, yada. Okay? Yeah, but you ain't there's no public accountability. Ain't none of that. So that's the system. The system needs to change. It needs to be changed. There needs to be challenge opportunity, and we need full-time officials. If you're going to have this type of stakes, it needs to be full-time officials.
Wow.
So there's a couple things there. Really, there's, to me, 3 things that stand out.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the first thing I thought when I heard this. Dabo Swinney makes $11.2 million this season. That does not include bonuses. Do you want to take a stab at what an ACC official makes per game?
Ooh, per game?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Per game, I'm going to guess they make, I really have no idea. Let's say $2,000.
It's a close guess, and there's not a ton of public information available about how much officials make, but the estimates are anywhere at the Power 5 level, Power 4 level, between $3,000 and $5,000 a game.
Okay.
How much was Dabo Swinney fined for saying this?
$10,000.
So a reminder that Dabo Swinney's making $11.2 million this year without bonuses. And the referees officiating the game that he's complaining about are going to make less than he was fined. That's important context here, right?
Very.
So there's a reason you're being held accountable, Dabo, and maybe to a degree that the officials aren't. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of substance to what he's saying. And so it's not all about, well, like, Dabo, you can't be calling out these officials because they're making pennies compared to what you're making, which is literally true. Like, people lose jobs. Coaches lose jobs. And not just like the Dabo Sweeneys or the Jimbo Fishers who it's like, oh, I feel so bad. Jimbo Fisher's going to get paid $100 million not to coach, right? Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about assistant coaches. I'm talking about analysts. I'm talking about go down the line. Guys that aren't making Dabo Sweeney type money lose jobs over missed calls because missed calls can lead to lost games, which leads to coaches and coaching staffs losing their jobs. So he's right. Maybe he's not the best messenger for it because of the money context of it all.
Yeah.
But he's right because, like the stakes are very high. Coaches, and again, not the head coaches, but coaching staffs, those guys are losing jobs over these kinds of missed calls. And then Dabo, like, you're hearing him talk for 2 minutes, and you're like, man, like the first thought I had was the money piece. Then the second thought I had was the piece on, the stakes. And then the third piece is like the last thing he said. The last thing he said should have been the first thing he said. We need officials to be full-time. Right? These officials aren't full-time. They're paid per game. In the NFL, they recently made their officials full-time. Well, what's the dirty little secret about these conferences? They're trying to maximize the amount of money they can make to hand out to their schools, right? There's a war being waged right now on the balance sheets. So every school is trying to get as much money as they possibly can back from the conference. So the conference is trying to do as much as they possibly can without paying out a ton of money to employees. Like that makes sense, right? Because they're trying to maximize the payouts for schools. That's sort of the function of these conferences. So, like, yeah, Dabo wants them to be full-time, but does Clemson want to get less money now because they've got full-time officials? So he's right in some ways, but he's not totally right.
Yeah. And I agree with that. So if he said about they can submit 10 plays, he got back that 5 were missed. So in a game that has 150 plays combined, that's 3%. 3% of all plays, which is about one missed call every 30 plays, or once every 7 to 8 minutes of real game time. Like, is that enough? Like, is that a number that's alarming and is actually swinging outcomes?
Well, okay, and so it's a great point, James. Did Dabo Sweeney think officiating was bad the year that they went undefeated and won a national title? Does Dabo Sweeney think officiating's bad because they're losing a lot more games than they're used to and he's being criticized?
Absolutely, it's that.
I mean, it feels like this is an ability to defer responsibility and say, hey, I'm being held accountable. I'm being raked to the coals, but these guys aren't. They're missing a bunch of calls. Well, to your point, you have to control what you can control. You can't control officials and when they throw flags and when they don't throw flags as a coach, as players, right? So I always say this when fans or media or anybody else calls out officials. And believe me, I'm a fan too. I get really frustrated in a football game when a call is missed or there's a bad call. And you can talk yourself into that call being the difference between winning and losing. Mm-hmm. But you have to take it out of their hands. You have to, like, there are other times where you can make up for it and make plays. And if you don't do it, then you can't complain about officiating because you have to take the officials out of it. You have to control what you can control. And there are other opportunities within that game for Clemson to win it, or within those games to Clemson to win it, and they didn't make the plays. That's on the officials.
Right.
Take it out of the officials' hands. Mm-hmm. They're a factor here.
And he wasn't complaining when Clemson was winning national championships. And
no.
Ryan Day's not complaining. And Kalani Sitake and Joey Maguire aren't complaining. And And
by the way, I don't think Joey or Kalani are two guys that would complain about these, even if they weren't where they are right now.
Right. Because a lot of this, and Dabo said it there, everybody gets the same number of plays that they can submit. Coaches have beefs with certain calls every game, but he's the one that's making a big deal out of it. And like, I just think college football officiating has to be one of the hardest jobs in sports. There aren't that many guys out there in terms of talent pool that can do it at this level.
And who wants to do it for $3 to $5 grand a game when it's a blameless, he says they're not accountable. Like, nobody likes officials. Good, bad, whatever. Like, nobody likes officials. So it's a very difficult job to do for not that much money.
And zero accountability, more accountability than credibility. Nobody cares that these guys do a fantastic job. You've got 22 elite athletes moving in 100 different directions, and they usually get one look at it live.
And what'd you say? They miss one out of every what?
They miss one out of about every 30 plays. 3% of a football game, going off of the math that he just used.
And even if you half that, right? Like, let's just be super, super conservative here and say 1 in 15. I mean, that means there's 14 other plays that you could have made a difference in the game that had nothing to do with the officials.
Yep.
And it's 30. 1 out of every 30. I'll tell you the last thing I thought. So there's the whole Dabo's trying to take away responsibility for his failures this year and the last couple of years as he's been heavily criticized. And he's running out of things to trumpet about himself. And then there's the whole okay, you're making $11.3 million and they're making like $3,000 to $5,000 per game. Like, maybe that's why there's a differentiation in accountability. And then there's, parts that partly right, but again, these are not full-time employees. So, and the conferences are incentivized to not make them full-time plays. So that's all there. The last thing though, ultimately what he's doing here, he's playing the mind games with officials. He wants calls in the future. So he's basically getting into the minds of officials by grabbing headlines here that's saying, you've wronged us. You owe us one.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like coaching 101. You need to make the officials feel like, oh, we owe Clemson one here. Whether you do or not, that's a coach's job. And that's what he's doing, more publicly than anything.
And it could potentially backfire, where calls are going against Clemson even more so, depending upon who the crew is.
That's a fair point.
You've got 0.8 seconds to decide what 10 million people are going to freeze frame in slow motion. It's plus all the varieties and just the different offenses that you see in college football. One week you're calling an air raid matchup. The next week somebody's running the triple option. I cannot imagine being in that position. Wild. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Anything we missed, it is the extra point. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Taman, our producer. This is the Big 12. This is a different league. We are brought to you by Modelo here on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn. We had Chris Level today from Red Raider Sports Network and Locked On Texas Tech podcast. He joined us. He'll be on the sidelines for the Texas Tech broadcast of BYU at Texas Tech, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central this Saturday. It's also our game of the week here on Big 12 Radio. We were joined by Baylor women's basketball coach Nikki Collin. She joined us live on the show, and then John Beck was fantastic. Former BYU quarterback. I didn't realize how good he was at BYU. Back in 06, he was – they won a conference championship, spent 7 years in the NFL, but he threw for over 11,000 yards for BYU back in the early 2000s and had that heroic comeback win over Utah. And now he's running a quarterback training academy. Great find on that, Taman, talking with John Beck about this weekend's game.
And if you remember – a couple of years ago, Dak Prescott went viral for one of his pregame warm-ups where he was really shifting his hips, if you remember that. And that's straight from the Tom House Quarterback Academy. Tom House, who John Beck now works with and referenced, was sort of the original quarterback coach. And it's crazy because Tom House historically is a baseball player, so it was weird how a baseball player become this world-renowned quarterbacks coach. So really interesting stuff there. Even Beck mentioned that when he was growing up and played baseball, he read a bunch of Tom House books on workouts and stuff. And as it turns out, like some of the stuff from a pitching perspective works really well with football. And that's what's made Tom House into a household name.
It's interesting. The North Texas coach, Eric Morris, who's one of the top candidates for the Oklahoma State job and will be a top candidate for many jobs this offseason, he was telling me that he offered Baker Mayfield when he was on the baseball diamond, when he was playing baseball. He went and watched him play baseball and offered him a scholarship. And then maybe that was John Mateer. It was John Mateer. And then he offered another guy a scholarship when he was playing basketball, after he went and watched him play basketball, because something with their mechanics, and he watches them play other sports, and that's how he knows whether or not he can mold them into the type of quarterback that he wants. How wild is that?
I mean, it's fascinating stuff. And, I mean, it makes sense because you want to know, like, there's certain movements that he may do in one sport that he might not do in another sport, and it's understanding those types of movements that relate back to the sport you're referring to. Does that make any sense?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit.
It's wild. Hey, BYU and Texas Tech, Saturday. You want to go?
No. No, I don't.
But if you did, just say you want to go.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No,
I'd love to drive to Lubbock and spend a bunch of money to sit in the stadium as opposed to sitting on my couch and having Modelo's in my fridge that I can grab at will.
No. They got Modelo's in Lubbock, okay?
Oh, of course they do.
We're going to go. I'll get these tickets. I just need you to Venmo me $727.
Okay. No. Where are we sitting?
That's corner end zone.
No.
These ticket prices are insane for this game. We could sit in a suite for $2,100.
That actually, honestly, way better deal than the $700 you'd pay to sit in the end zone nosebleeds.
It's not necessarily it's not the nosebleeds. Jones AT&T has a little end zone dip. They're pretty good seats.
I'd just rather pay 3 times more for a suite.
The nosebleeds are upper 300s. 366, 382, 450, 432. That's upper deck. That's upper level for this game.
Just a little insight here. This is my strategy on buying tickets in 2025. Wait until the last possible minute. If you have all of the ticketing apps open and you're going through each of the different ones 2 hours before kickoff and you're watching prices, you will find steals, because inevitably you're going to find people that get concerned they're not going to be able to sell their tickets, right? Like they price them really high. I'm going to be able to get this much money for my tickets, $420 in a section that's all like $300 seats, right? Oh, I'm going to get, and they get closer and closer to kickoff, and now they're getting very concerned they're not going to sell those tickets. That's when you pounce.
That makes me, that is setting my nervous system ablaze just thinking about
I bet.
The pressure.
I love it.
What if I don't get the tickets? What if I've made plans? What if I've made a whole event around this game and then I can't go?
Well, why wouldn't you be able to go?
What if you can't get the tickets, or what if your strategy doesn't work and they're still super expensive?
Okay, so what do you mean by can't get, like the tickets won't go through, or what? Like, because if you,
What if it's a sellout? I don't know.
well, it is a sellout, but these are like the secondary apps. I mean, we're talking about SeatGeek, Ticketmaster, to name a few here that inevitably,
They're always going to have tickets.
yeah, because people are selling their tickets. The game is sold out. Most of these games we're talking about here are sold out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you could buy them at face value, then you'd buy them at face value, which would be the best deal you could possibly get. That's my strategy. That's my PSA to people. I don't know.
You look angry that I haven't been through this process in a really long time. I can tell. That was a deep sigh, and I can't tell if it's just the way you breathe or if you're visibly annoyed by the fact that I don't know how this works.
Both.
When's the last time you were at the DMV?
It's been a long time.
A decade? 5 years?
I mean, you could do it all online now. Why do you...
You can't do it all online. Nope.
James, I know...
I
know you've got an acid wash jeans jacket on right now, but this is not 1999. You could do it all online.
You cannot. You have to schedule an appointment.
Okay, so you have
Because I'm out of state.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Okay?
Once you get into the system, though, you're good to go. You can do it all online. It's
That's
great.
good to know.
Yeah.
It's good to know because I've had this has just been, I've been kicking this can down the road for a year.
Okay. So let me ask you something.
I have all my documents there in a Ziploc bag over there
Okay, good to know.
because that is stressful. Every document I own.
Has your Kansas license expired?
I don't think so.
Because if it has, you're going to have to take the driver's test again.
What?
Fact.
I'm not sure I'll pass.
Yeah, correct. Which is why that was my biggest fear. And when I moved to Texas years ago, I waited until the last possible minute to do it and didn't realize that had I let my license expire, which was going to happen the next day, I would have had to retake the driver's test.
I don't like that.
Producer Tateman?
So my experience at the DMV went like this. When I moved from New York to Texas, I had to wait 4 hours at the DMV. This was in 2015.
4 hours?
Yeah, coming.
This was
I've got a-
pre-appointment.
Yeah.
Okay, I made an appointment. I've got a hard stop.
Yeah, this was before pre-appointment, and on top of that, I was told once I got up that I had to get glasses because my vision was fine in New York with a New York license, but did not meet the code of Texas. So I had to go get an eye test done, get glasses to drive in Texas,
Wow.
and then I set an appointment.
They test your
By the way,
eyesight?
It seems like that was a good idea. You wear glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't then. I didn't at the time.
I don't know why the state of New York wasn't like, this guy can't see. Why are we letting him drive?
Here, will they let me take the eye test with my glasses?
Well, no, it depends on the designation of your current license, I think.
Okay.
But it's good. By the way, it's not like just because it's an appointment doesn't mean you're going to breeze through it. Although I can't tell you because I haven't had to go into the DMV.
My goal is it takes less than an hour.
It's also not called the DMV here. It's called something else.
Department of Public Safety.
Okay.
The
I'm
DPS.
ready. I've got my birth certificate. I've got my passport. I've got my social security card. I've got my 7th grade card. I've got every document I own.
That's great to know. Anybody that finds James on the road, feel free to steal his entire identity. It's right there for you.
Yeah. I've got a 40-minute drive ahead of me.
Do you know which DMV you're going to?
Yeah.
Is it in Garland, the
Yes.
big one?
Yes.
Oh.
That's
That's the one I went where I waited 4 hours.
Yeah, good luck.
But there's appointments now.
But
I have an appointment.
James is going to be at the end of the line. I've got an appointment, everybody.
What happens if I
By the way, there's a
miss the
line.
appointment?
There's a line despite the appointment. So you'll be like, I'm going to move ahead. I've got the appointment. And they'll be like, yeah, so do we all have
Man,
appointments.
I'm dreading this. Like, this is where dreams go to die.
What's the dream?
The dream is that I get in and out within an hour.
Yeah, no, that dream is dead.
Got to shoot around to
happening.
attend.
That dream is DOA.
Dead on arrival.
Thank you. Yeah,
Good stuff.
got
Good
it. I didn't know what
today.
you were thinking about there.
Good show today. Now I can't stop thinking about how fast I've got to go. We got to go. We're out. All right. He's already tipped.
Excuse me, officer.
He's already. I've got an appointment. He's already Timken. I'm James Westling. Taman Turner, our producer and engineer. Great job today. We had Baylor women's basketball coach Nikki Collin, John Beck, former BYU quarterback Chris Level from the Red Raider, Texas Tech Radio Network. We'll do it all again tomorrow. We'll be picking some games. You've been watching Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, listening to us on TuneIn, watching on Big 12 Studios, brought to you by Modelo. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league.
Zoom!